Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto hates the Amazon's Justice League. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Freedom Guard and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. Unexpected revival. The Cathus obviously is not the afterlife. Because I sure as hell did not go swimming the last time I was there. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze commented as he finally got out of the ocean and tried to wipe the obvious salt water from his eyes with both his hands. Not that it was going well since his clothing was soaked. He was confused to hell on how he got here of all places, that it was a bad place since the island was pretty much a paradise at first glance. The former 7th Hokage of Konoha had long since passed on in peace, his son Boruto a high-ranking jonin who was now working with the 8th Hokage Konohamaru and married with his own family, and his daughter Himawari, herself a high-ranking jonin and also happily married with her own children, and her now awakened Byakugan, had been there at his funeral alongside his wife Hinata, who had also passed on. Thus he had accomplished all of his dreams and goals in life and had gone into the afterlife and had reconnected with those who had passed on like he did. That included his parents, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, Jiraiya, Haruka, Hiruzen, and so many others. It was a grand reunion and a chance to finally reconnect. Hell, he even ran into his mother figure Tsunade there and even Gaara as well as the other former Kage. It was a wonderful time to see so many old faces even if they were long dead now. It was a good chance to relax after all that had happened, plus he could chat with Kurama and the others every now and then to hear how things were back in the realm of the living. So far their world did well and much of what they had done to make their world better was retained and even improved on by their successors. Then suddenly at a certain amount of time, or what passes for time in the spirit world, some sort of massive disturbance slammed into the realm of the spirits and it caused quite the ruckus, and so he and everyone else did what they could to stop it over. While he had managed to help seal a rip, another blast of energy happened. He got hit by one powerful wave of the same energy and in a brief moment he felt like he was being torn apart in multiple directions. And then found himself in a bleeding ocean and had to get to the surface as he realized that he was in actual water and not some illusion. It managed to break the surface and take in a very explosive gulp of actual air and took in more oxygen into his body. Once he was done with that part he began to summon his chakra and soon got himself out of the water and began to water walk to look around, and he soon spotted from a distance the island, and despite his still lingering confusion on how could possibly be back in the world of the living. Once getting his foot on actual sand and then moving down to hold some of the sand in his hands to make sure that what he was feeling was indeed real, he began to look for any signs that could help give him some idea on where he was. Naruto then decided to try something, which he knew was going to be a pain, no matter how brief. He bit his finger to draw blood and sure enough, there was pain, and soon he saw blood on his hand, and as quickly as that happened, his wound healed quickly. Okay, obviously I am alive, otherwise I wouldn't be feeling pain again. And I actually bled it, what the hell happened? Naruto said as the pain he was feeling faded from being healed quickly. As soon as it faded and he was assured that he was indeed back in the lands of the living, yet how was eluding him still, another sensation assaulted him. I'm freaking hungry. It was true, having already died, Naruto was no longer affected by hunger, though he was able to enjoy the spiritual equivalent of food and drink, namely from Hinata and his mother Kushina, who was more than willing to spoil him rotten, no doubt to make up for all the years she had never been by his side. Hinata certainly did not mind and was actually happy to finally meet Naruto's mother even in the afterlife, and naturally Kushina took a shine to her daughter in revealing that she had been happy to see a woman who had loved her son so deeply, even when they were kids, much to his embarrassment and Hinata's own. So to suddenly and unexpectedly brought back to Luffy was enough to drive those hunger pangs back with a vengeance, along with thirst as well. Naruto decided to check himself first and was pleased at least that his now reborn chakra circulatory system was alright and recovering, though his chakra supplies were no longer as potent as before when he was alive. It made sense to him since his body, how he even had one much less his old body back, was no doubt recovering from all of this. So far his chakra was around the level when he had tangled with Zabuza and Haku, not a lot, and it would have to do for now. He decided to focus on getting food and water first and hopefully find out just where he was. He did not want to use any higher abilities and jutsu just yet, plus he might need to get some energy back before checking to see if Kurama and the other Biju were with him, on the off chance he still had his ability to connect to them. Sisters. Look. A number of women wearing simple clothes with armor on top and carrying a fair number of weapons turned to see the plume of smoke coming from a distance. And while they were drop-dead gorgeous women, they were hardly delicate as they carried their weapons well as if they were trained well in it. But the sudden presence of smoke where there should be none had them on edge, and one spoke out. What could be going on here? There's no one out there on that stretch of the beach at this time of the day. There can only be one thing, intruders. The one turned and spoke. Go warn the others and tell Princess Diana and Queen Hippolyta that we have intruders. Yes, sister. The Amazons of Themyscira had no love for unwanted guests in their homes, even more so if they happened to be men. How this intruder found their sacred home they had no idea, but they were going to make sure that said individual would not leave it at all if it came to that. Back on the beach. Naruto was pleased to at least have found some food and had clean water right now. As soon as he got his stomach to calm down, he could try and find out if anyone lived on this island. He normally could have reached out with his sage mode or with the power of Kurama as well as the others, but he had decided not to use them since with the way Ho's body was and his chakra as well, he was not sure that using either method right now was worth the risk. Not only that, he was not yet sure if they were with him since he had yet to try and contact them in his mind like he normally did when he was in a meeting with them. He managed to catch some fish and also found good fresh water from coconuts and got his thirst dealt with once he used his wind chakra to create a finely sharpened blade to cut them open to get to said water. He also decided to try some of the coconuts and while he was not really a fan of the stuff, it was nice to have something ease the hunger in his body a bit before going over to the main course. The fish took a bit more effort to catch and prepare, but with them now roasting over the fire, he had managed to make quickly with some good driftwood that was dry and some fire chakra and was now looking forward to a meal as the fish was cooking well. However, his danger senses quickly kicked on and he turned to catch an arrow before it buried itself into his back. He turned and saw several women who were armed and armored unlike what he had seen before coming at him. That was not entirely accurate as they seemed to be armed and armored in the same manner as Temujin's people, but the gear was still unknown to him. Naruto quickly got up and snapped the arrow in half and spoke out. Who are you people? One woman armed with a spear snorted and spoke. You dare ask who we are, male? We are the Amazons of Themyscira and you are trespassing on our land. That comment quickly answered Naruto's previous question on whether the island was inhabited or not, though he still was confused on why was it he was able to understand the woman as if they were speaking his world's language. It made no sense to him since as far as he knew, after he retired as Hokage and traveled as a sage and ambassador, there was no way he had encountered people like them before. So far the only group he could think of who were similar them right now were the Kunoichi of Nadeshiko, but he seriously doubted they related to Shizuka's village, where since there was no way that the Kunoichi there would set up a new village outside of the land of water. Not only that, he had never heard of Themyscira before, it sounded very foreign to him, so the only thing that could make sense to him was that he had somehow landed on a foreign island. And obviously they were not happy about it. What? Amazons. I have no idea who you are and I certainly did not know this island was inhabited. Liar. You came here to plunder our home and no doubt take our sisters as your slaves. Akano, that was uncalled for. The anger in the tone of the woman was genuine and the stance told Naruto that the woman in front of her was really on edge in dealing with him. And no doubt would skewer him on sight the very second he did something that she thought was a threat. The same thing was present in the eyes of the other women, not a good thing in the blonde's view and also even more confusing on why they have such an axe to grind against men. Granted, he understood that there were indeed men who got the ire of women easily, but to suddenly lump him, a man they barely met, into the same group as said men without any proof was very much a dangerous thing. But still, he would try to talk some sense into them and hopefully avoid an unneeded fight. Now hold it. I am not your enemy here. But that did not sit well with the women as the first speaker glared. Silence. Die. Well, looks like diplomacy is out the window, time to defend myself and hopefully get some proper answers. Naruto quickly decided that he had to move fast, even though he still had no idea what was going on. There was no way in the afterlife he was going to let himself die today. He quickly moved to using the body flicker jutsu and quickly took down the attacking Amazons, but non-lethally, since he was still confused out of his mind on who they were and he was not going to get any good answers if they all decide to kill him. Soon they all dropped down out cold but alive and he faced the one with the bow, quickly grabbing the weapon and snapping the string and tossing it aside. The Amazon was shocked to be sure, but Naruto quickly backed away and spoke again. Look, none of your sisters are harmed, I merely knocked them out, so can we please try and talk like civilized people? Anything the woman was about to say was cut short when another voice joined them. Who are you and why are you here in my people's home? Naruto turned and saw a drop-dead gorgeous raven-haired and blue-eyed woman who would have easily been up there in the looks department with his wife Hinata, Tsunade, even if she was technically older, Mei Terumi, Kurenai, and a few other Kunoichi he knew of, plus some of the princesses back home. Even though she wore a style of clothing that did not in any way ring any memory chords, he had no problem seeing how drop-dead beautiful her figure was. She was tall and yet had all the right curves and swells in all the right places and had muscles too, but not the overtly bulging kind, but the kind that belonged to a woman who was well-toned and strong, yet undeniably feminine. Still he could tell that she was no slouch in a fight and no doubt well skilled in combat, that much he could see, as while she seemed to be casually studying him at first glance, she was already sizing him up, wary of any movement he might make that could be seen as a danger to her and no doubt to her fellow women. She was also carrying herself in a very regal manner, only that of someone who had been raised in a very rich and powerful household, and from the tone was someone high up in the leadership ladder. Possibly a princess. Princess Diana. Yep, nailed it. Naruto was at least pleased to be speaking to someone who was of authority here, though he balanced it with the fact that she too was wary of him. But he could see that there was also a hint of curiosity in her eyes as well, and that was something he might work with in order to decide just what he was going to do next. But for now he had to play the diplomat and hope that she was a more approachable person than the others. Okay, in answer to your question Diana Haim, I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze of Konoha in the Land of Fire, former 7th Hokage and head of the Uzumaki clan. And I apologize for being here as I had no idea this was your people's home and I have no desire to fight you or anyone else. Diana arched an eyebrow at that, curious at this sudden turn of events. There was always the chance that the male was lying, as her mother told her to be wary as men can be very deceitful. The princess had arrived to witness him disable her sisters with a move that made her seem to be in par with Hermes, messenger of the gods, though not at that full level, and then attack the last Amazon but had actually taken her bow and snapped the string, rendering it useless. But had then moved away to try and talk to her. Diana also saw that her fellow Amazons were actually alive and out cold, still he could very well be doing it to make them lower their guard, pry a lie into their ear, and stab them in the back. For some reason looking at the blonde male though made her think that while he could be quite capable of such an act, it seemed countering to who he was. She had no idea why that was the case though, and her caution won over her thoughts for now, and she spoke once more to him. How so? You defeated my sisters with ease apparently, so why not attack me? And what does Haim mean? The Kathis is going a bit better, at least she's not trying to flatten my head in. I might as well try and see if I can at least end this without bloodshed. Naruto thought to himself and hoped that this was going to be in the direction he hoped it would go. Well, for one I did not harm them with lethal intent, merely rendered out cold, they will wake up in a few minutes. And for another I have no prior history with your people, though you do remind me of a people I knew of a long time ago. I also don't have any desire to fight unknown people as well. And lastly, Haim is a translation for princess, fitting now that I think about it, since you are one your highness. Diana cocked her head to the side seeing that there was no deception at all in his words, making her all the curious though no less wary. It was clear to her that this was unlike anything she had dealt with and sure enough her fellow Amazons were beginning to wake up. Though they were doing it slowly since how Thisman Naruto had hit them seemed to be very precise and accurate to have made them go down that quickly and take this long to recover. Now however it begged the question how the male got here, there was no sign of a ship anywhere, either an intact one or a wreck. There was no way this man had been able to swim all the way here since the ocean had its fair share of predators and thus moving in the ocean solely on muscle power was hard to do. How did you come here then? Naruto realized that this was one question he was going to have a hard time answering. After all, how exactly did one explain to another that he had pretty much been a spirit in the afterlife? But seeing as he had no other alternative before him, he might as well try and see how things will turn out if he told Diana his origins. Well, it might be hard to swallow. You see, have no idea how I got here or how exactly I am even alive for that matter. The last place I was in the afterlife. Diana was wide-eyed at that as she was well aware of what the afterlife was, but among her people, they called it the Elysium Fields, and as far as she was aware, very few ever came back from that place. Psyche was one, along with the famed musician who charmed Cerberus to sleep with his lyre. But no spirit itself had ever left the place unless they were somehow summoned with sacrifices or were sent up by Hades or summoned by a sorcerer, and the man before them was obviously no spirit. Cerberus would never allow anyone among the dead to leave the land of the dead. There was also the fact that the man before him was no evil man as far as she could sense. Once more she counters what she felt with a still lingering possibility that he was deceiving them in some manner, but decides to try some more to see if she could get the truth from him. If not, then he would have to be detained and then subjected to the lasso of truth held by them, and since it forced anyone in its grip to speak the truth, then it would help. The hour saying you are from the Elysium Fields. Naruto was surprised at that and for good reason as the afterlife was usually called the pure world, not the Elysium Fields. But if she called it that, then there was the chance that the term she used was her culture's way of calling the afterlife. With that in mind, he might as well roll with it and hope for the best and replied. You have that is what your people the afterlife and I suppose yes I am, but somehow I was brought back to life and came here. Believe me I am as confused as you are. So please, can we at least have a civil discussion before anything else? Any attempt at the conversation was cut short when another group of Amazons came in armed to the teeth, and one of them, a woman who would have been easily seen as a member of Kumo, came at Naruto with a spear. And she was not alone, as a Redeed who carried a sword and a shield was also glaring at him with killer intent. Naruto could not help but feel a bit of a sweat drop go down the side of his head at this. This was not good at all. Vile male, you dare to set foot on Themyscira. Die. Naruto was getting really annoyed by this and decided to do something drastic, but yet non-lethal, as he still needed to prove that he was not here as a threat to them. Prude, not again. That's it. Naruto decided to summon the chakra he had in him, which was still quite a lot, and soon placed his hands in a cross style that confused the Amazons and Diana in particular, and then uttered the words of the technique that made him famous in many a battlefield. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. To the shocked Amazons, including Diana, there were now more men there, and all of them looked like the lone male, and all of them were growling in annoyance at them, and they were soon whispering. Magic. How come they all look like that male? He is a sorcerer. Naruto and his Kage Bunshin were ready for battle now, but the original decided to not attack the people before him and try to reason with them once more. He was not here for a fight with people he had no knowledge of, let alone had no reason to be enemies with. But if they were unwilling to listen to reason, then he would fight, possibly to restrain them and if needed use one as a hostage. That he disliked immensely, but it was an option, just one he hoped he would ever use. Look, this does not have to turn into a battle. I am not here to harm anyone, and your sisters are fine. If I am at least allowed to leave in peace, then please let that be the case, and we can forget this ever happened. But if any of you decide to attack me again, then the kid gloves are coming off. Diana was intrigued indeed. The man was unlike anything she had been told about men. He seemed to have great power and yet did all he could not to cause conflict, that much was clear. And apparently while he did look at her and her fellow Amazons like any normal male would, he seemed not to be driven by baser instincts. His stance was also that of a fighter and yet unknown to her, which was confusing as she had been trained by the best in her home and thus was familiar with many a combat stance, with only her mother and Artemis knowing more than she did. She also recalled the time he said he was actually from the afterlife and had no idea why he was alive, let alone here. There was indeed no deception here, and her emphatic senses told her that the young man, or whatever he truly was, indeed had no desire to fight them, but would fight if pushed too far. She decided to speak and use the laws of her people when it concerned outsiders, namely those of the male gender. Normally male outsiders were either killed if they attacked, or if taken alive were then taken as a prisoner, and then after a set amount of time would be judged by the Amazon assembly and then executed for trespassing on their lands, even more so if they attacked or abused any Amazon on the island. But a male can actually fight for the right to be allowed to remain on Themyscira under watch, but will not be harmed by any Amazon under the law until he either breaks the law in which he will be killed or desires to return home and is affected by a spell to lose all memory of Themyscira. It was extraordinarily rare for a man to be made an ally of the Amazons and allowed to come and go among them. It was almost unheard of ever since the time Hercules and his thug followers came. After what happened, not one male ever been seen as an ally, with the marked exception of male gods who were friends to them. And they were few enough as it was, still they might as well give this man a chance. General Philippus, let me speak. Your Highness. Diana understood the dark-skinned woman's reasons for not being all that keen on what was going on before them, but she was not going to relent as she had made her decision and must see it through. Trust me. The Amazon general looked at her princess and saw that Diana was serious and despite her personal thoughts nodded, and soon the princess spoke once more to Naruto. And since he knew that she was looking at him now, he was the one she was speaking to. You showed that you do not desire conflict at all with us, Naruto, and there seems to be no lie in your word, which in itself is surprising. But as the law states, no man is to be allowed to set foot on Themyscira, and thus any are to be dealt with violence if it comes to it. And if an Amazon ever brings a male here to Themyscira, then she is exiled. However. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that and decided to disperse his Kage Bunshin and listen to this. However. If you defeat one of us in combat, then you will be permitted to stay on the island without incident unless you desire to leave, and a spell made by our priestesses will remove your memories of our home. Or you break our laws and thus that protection is taken away. Philippus then spoke. But if you lose, then you will be a prisoner until the time comes for you to be executed for trespassing. The blonde was wide-eyed at this. This was reminding him a bit too much of the time he tangled with Shizuka about the idea of her having to fight him to see if he was worthy of being her husband. If he won, then he would be her husband. If he lost, well, he was dead. This on the other hand, well, similar, was a hell of a lot more different than what he had to deal with when he faced Shizuka. You have got to be kidding me. Man, and I thought the old law in Shizuka's village was rather oddball. Naruto sighed at that and replied. There's no other way around this then. Diana shook her head and that made the blonde growl in annoyance as he wished there was some other way. Great, either I fight to save my life and stay here even if I did not come here to fight, or not fight and be on the chopping block when I find the cause of how I got here, I will ask the kami to fix the mess. Or if I possibly find the idiot who messed up the afterlife and sent me here, I am shoving a Rasengan right into the colon. Damn it. Naruto's deep look of frustration was strange to the Amazon princess since it seemed to her that he was utterly unhappy with being placed in this situation. But it also seemed that he was considering his response to the matter, and thus Diana waited until he replied. Very well, may I at least choose my opponent? You may. Naruto was sure this was going to be taken badly if he acted all arrogant about it and decided to be serious when he made his decision. The opponent had to be someone who can be seen as being high up the ladder for better impact. Not something one did unless they had cast iron balls or were insane. Thankfully Naruto was no stranger to high-risk strategies, having done plenty of such things in his day when he was alive. Well, I wish to fight you, Diana Haim. That made Diana raise her eyebrow in surprise, but then smiled and she nodded, while the other Amazons were unhappy with the idea of him publicly challenging their princess and commented that he was a very arrogant male to think he could beat their princess. She saw it differently. The man had picked her because she was someone who was high up in their people's leadership ladder, since she was admittedly the princess of the island, thus fighting her was not an arrogant move, but a calculated one, as he had picked one of the strongest fighters among them and also one of the highest among their leadership. Not only that, she had seen him when he chose her as his foe, he had taken a lot of consideration on this and was not rushing in out of arrogance. Interesting, this should be an interesting match, one I have no desire to lose. He may be interesting, but he is still a male that I will have to defeat. Very well, I accept your challenge. And if you do defeat me, then you will tell us all your story. Later. The two faced one another in a ring in the city after he allowed himself to be taken prisoner and escorted by the Amazons, while Diana decided to move forward and prepare things with her mother. The queen was soon seen, and Naruto had to admit that she too was drop-dead gorgeous since she had blonde hair, blue eyes like her daughter and a face and figure to die for. The way she moved and spoke was also of a regal manner, along with the items one expected one of royalty to wear. But like her daughter, the queen was a seasoned fighter, that much he had no problem seeing, and the way she would calmly and confidently hold the handle of her sword was just as telling. Her stare towards him was also the same, but she was also rather curious on who he was and no doubt had been told of his story by her daughter and was no doubt trying to see if he was lying to them. The golden lasso nearby might have looked like ordinary rope, but Naruto was no fool and doubted that it was there for show. He knew he had only drank water and had limited food, and so he might not have a lot of energy, and since his return to the realm of the living, he was now fighting the effects of sleepiness and hunger since he was still adjusting to being alive. Thus he listened to the queen speak on the situation to all the Amazons and also the fight that was to begin between her daughter and Naruto, and blessed this match under the name of their patron goddesses to decide how this battle shall end. And so it would begin. While the Amazons cheered Diana, none cheered for Naruto, and they merely glared at him and said some dispiriting names, reminding the blonde of his past prior to becoming the hero and legend he was prior to his peaceful passing. It did not bother him in the slightest, and soon he turned to face the queen, who soon gave the command. Begin. Naruto quickly moved on the defensive as Diana came at him and they clashed with one another. Diana had exceptional strength to be sure, but not at the same level as Tsunade or Sakura, and he was much stronger than he was when he was younger, and no doubt being socked by Sakura in their younger days when she was Tsunade's apprentice, and him dodging some of Tsunade's own blows, toughened him up somewhat. He proved more than able to hold his own, which surprised Diana and her sisters, and his fighting skills were impressive, even though they still saw him as a disgusting male. One of her punches was blocked by Naruto with his left forearm, but he moved the fist upwards and then moved close to launch an elbow strike to Diana's midsection. The attack was done at a god pace, and Diana managed to avoid the blow by moving backwards, but Naruto quickly moved forward and actually moved to using his hands to allow him to flip in midair and deliver a punishing axe kick with his left leg, forcing Diana to block with her forearms. Naruto on the other hand could see that Diana's style was very good, similar to an extent as a fusion of the gentle fist and the strong fist, but having none of the potential of both. Her speed was excellent and her healing was good as well. But he was not going to relent at all, even if he had to admit that it had been a while since he had faced a good foe in battle. He used that same position he was in while mid-air to place his other foot on Diana's forearms, allow him to leap over her. She moved to try and land a kick to him as soon as he landed, aiming for his side, only for him to drop to his knees, allowing the kick to sail over his head before lashing out with an uppercut, which she evaded though it was close. She unleashed a palm strike and it managed to hit Naruto, but instead of being angered by being hit, he took the blow and then moved to the side with a rising side kick that struck Diana on the side. Ah. Diana grunted at the blow, but she did not stop as she quickly got her footing back and defended herself from Naruto, who was using some of the moves he learned from Hinata when they would spar with one another to keep in shape. He did not have the Byakugan, but he certainly had the moves with it counted. However, so did Diana as she was able to defend herself well and also unleash attacks right back at Naruto, who either evaded them or blocked them. He managed to land a powerful blow when he evaded a series of punches from her and quickly evaded a kick to his side and leaped over her, and before she could retaliate, he unleashed a double punch and kick combination to send Diana back, who recovered and expected him to taunt her when she was on the ground on her knees. But he did not. Impressive, the stance and form you use in combat is very interesting indeed, Diana Heim. The only styles I know of that have similarities is the gentle fist and strong fist, both of which are powerful in their own right, coupled with your strength and endurance, the style is indeed very effective. You also showed exceptional skill in defense, as well as timing, along with combat awareness. You no doubt would make a powerful kunoichi had you lived in my world when I was still among the living. Diana and the others were surprised. Instead of taunting Diana and calling her inferior for not being able to stop him that time around, he praised her skills and fighting ability. Diana herself had been praised before but never by a man, and it was interesting as well as making her feel pleased with herself. I thank you for your praise, but this is not over yet. I have no doubt of that. The two clashed once more. Once Diana was on her feet and punches, kicks, and more were unleashed, and to Diana's amazement and actual joy, Naruto was able to match her blow for blow as she began to enjoy the fight. Naruto likewise was becoming more into the fight as it had been a while since he fought a decent foe, and he admired her beauty like any man would if they were in his shoes. Soon she charged using her fist, and he countered by flipping over her and landing as she lashed out with a kick which he blocked, and then both punched one another hard in the stomach. Both of them recovered and continued to fight, and what would have been a quick fight in the eyes of the Amazons was now fierce battle that lasted hours, but none of them complained as they had never seen a man go the distance with any one of them, let alone Diana herself. Hippolyta herself looked on at how the two were fighting one another. She could see that the others were amazed as she was, but she also saw the joy Diana had in her eyes, and the way she moved showed to the queen that her daughter was actually liking the fact that the man was able to hold his own thus far. She turned to see that Donna herself was surprised that someone like this Naruto was able to stand against her sister. She saw also that Artemis was focused on the fight while Alexa, the older Amazon sister, was looking on in surprise at how this fight was playing out. They wondered just what was this male's story, since the idea of him coming from the Elysium fields was hard to fathom. But she decided to wait and see how this battle will end, and then determine with the aid of the lasso, and if needed the priestesses, to determine the truth on the matter. Both combatants though were focused on another as they continued to land blow after blow, and it seemed that Diana had long since discarded any of her people's distrust towards men and focused on enjoying this battle. Naruto was somewhat in the same boat as she was, as there was no doubt that he was now adjusting to fighting against a living, breathing opponent. And while a part of him admired her as a woman, he also admired her as a warrior, and while not a kunoichi like his wife and those he knew back when he was alive, she had exceptional potential. You fight well. Likewise, Diana Heim. Soon however, Naruto pulled a powerful combination that knocks Diana out, and he is the winner and is bruised greatly as well as Diana was. But he smiled at Diana, and to her surprise, he somehow summons a form of glowing fire into his hand and then places it on her shoulder and her injuries fully heal. As soon as he did so, he stood up and helped her up and spoke. Have I accomplished what is needed? Diana nodded. But you haven't, you healed me as well, are you sure you are not a sorcerer? Nope. Just a really impressive shinobi. No, we think I need to sleep. Naruto soon closed his eyes and began to fall down, much to Diana's surprise, and she caught him and she saw that he was indeed exhausted and recalled that he had not eaten or rested ever since he came here. He was still alive and she decided to take him to the healing house and looked at Hippolyta, and the blonde queen was more than able to understand her daughter's request and she soon spoke. Let it be known that Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze has proven himself worthy to remain here in Themyscira and thus is under the protection of our laws. The others agreed, and Diana was even more interested in what he had to tell of himself as the man was taken on a stretcher and she accompanied him. To be continued. Author's notes. Well, here we are, another idea that had to be made. Now on to the reasons on why this came out from my noggin. While I have no plans to abandon Justice League Fire Shadow, I have taken the time to admit that it has a good number of flaws, and my presentation of some of Naruto's aspects have been rather poor in my view, and no doubt in the views of others. I may now be a veteran writer, but I am no saint who cannot make mistakes. I will however finish Fire Shadow, mistakes and all, since I have no plans to change my path. I have come too far already, and while not everyone likes it, I see enough people who are happy with my work as it is to carry on forward. The little sideshow on the other hand is something I had been inspired to do now that Naruto's story is over in the manga, and while there are a lot of unanswered questions on more than one front, I liked it enough to accept it. Besides, Boruto and Himawari are going to be interesting people to use in any new stories I will cook up when I feel that it is time for Naruto and the whole gang to retire and let the younger generation take over. In this one, Naruto has already passed on and is in the afterlife with the others who have already passed on as well, but due to an event which will be central in the coming story, Naruto is torn from the afterlife and deposited in the DC world. But instead of being in a city like in Fire Shadow, Naruto lands smack dab in Themyscira. And right into the hands of the Amazons and faces against Diana herself in combat and manages to win even though he is not yet at full strength, and because he has accepted their law and had won the fight against one of their own and their princess at that, then they are by law required to let him stay. How will this affect the Amazons and how will Naruto handle being in a new reality unlike his own? Will he seek to return to the afterlife and find his way back? Or will he embark on a new journey and this time forge a destiny of his own making? Let's find out. Now on the subject of what version this DCAU world, this is still based on the Justice League series which includes Unlimited, but I will be borrowing some elements from the comics, and yes, even from the New 52, only difference is that it is merely to costumes, not the personalities or the backstories of the characters that got revamped. They don't ring well with me, since I am more of an old school type. I'm also not all that sold on how to approach this in the New 53 format, so I am going to focus on the past one. The Polita is the blonde version as in the cartoons and in the New 52, but did not have an affair with Zeus, so Diana is still the same as in the comics and cartoons. The Amazons are closer to the myths, but are unlike the ones in the New 52, and they certainly are not women who claim to be immortality are like in the comics, but they do take in female children who they find and raise them, and eventually grant them the power to become Amazons themselves, but never do anything to male children. Superman is not short-tempered, his adopted folks are alive, well you get the idea. I also plan to add Alexa and Artemis in the mix, and even Donna. Now before anyone gets any fancy ideas, let me make it clear that this is still in production phase, and while I have already begun to formulate the plans on how this will play out, this is going to be in the icebox for a while. As for pairings, well, not too sure yet since it's still up in the air. I can of course try and resurrect Hinata to make things more interesting, but that is not that good an option for me, since the circumstances that bring Naruto into this world have yet to be known. And thus we will have Naruto on his own this time, though he will be watched over by his people in one way or another. Naruto's power level. Well, he is at maximum power, and he is already a former Hokage, so all of the things he is able to do at the end of the manga and the movie that deals with him and Hinata is there. The fact that all 9 Biju are here with him and he does have Hashirama's cells in him and he is able to enter Sage mode helps. But to be fair, right now his powers and the Biju are very low, simply because he had just been brought back from the dead, so his new body, even if it's modeled after his original body when he was back to being 19, is not yet retrained in his powers. So he will be recovering his full strength through retraining, though the Biju will be sleeping for a bit before they join him in battle. So he won't be chucking out jutsu willy-nilly just yet, but he will at some point. In this time frame, Diana has not yet left Themyscira to one day join the League. In fact, it will be some time before she would go to one day meet Superman, Batman, Hawkgirl, Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Green Lantern. The difference here will be that she will not be alone, and how will she act if she has been around Naruto prior to joining the League? Let's find out. Question 1. Will this be a harem or single pairing story? Answer. This had to be dealt with before anything else, since if I did not point out where the pairing will go, I will never get any decent sleep. Okay, to be honest, I am leaning to the single bit this time around, though the harem route is still an interesting option. Though to be fair for the readers, I will make it clear to all that if I do go on the H route, I will make some modifications, so it won't follow the route that Fire Shadow had taken. That may mean it will be smaller in terms of number, or there are some ladies that are off the table for one reason or another. Now let's get down to the ladies who are the possible choices in either the H route or the single route, shall we? Diana. She's a given, and yes, while she will have the look she has in the New 52, she is not her New 52 incarnation, has the same traits and backstory as in the cartoon series, but having some comic book elements as well. So don't expect her to be the daughter of Zeus or anything of the sort, though she does have some friendly relations, strictly friends, with some of the male gods. Now if she is in the H route, then she would best be described as the alpha female, if we use a wolf pack as an analogy. She's the leader of the pack in this case, and has the closest relationship with Naruto, since he is with her for a while prior to joining the League, so if we have a harem here there will be something of a hierarchy. Naruto however will not show favoritism towards Diana, and she knows it as he will be very serious in being open about his feelings on the matter and be very much involved in the whole matter. And yes, she will develop the ability to use chakra, though I intend for her not to be the only one among the Amazons. And if she is the only woman in the relationship, if I go singleton, it would be best described as being like most relationships, though she and Naruto will be mobile in a sense, as they would actually have no base of operations unlike most heroes. Plus Naruto would actually somehow make Diana become a full flesh and blood woman, so she can actually have children, and will show the same devotion and love he had with Hinata and their children. One issue though would have to be Io, the Amazon weaponsmith who has a not-so-secret crush on Diana. You can bet Diana having a relationship with Naruto on either front will be an issue for her. Donna is an alternative for Diana if I decide to have Diana go after our old Mr. Tall, Dark and Broody, and it will be just as interesting a situation as Diana and Naruto in this case remain good friends and he stays as her teacher. Anna is one of the few characters who I feel have not yet been properly utilized by most writers, the marked exceptions being Agent G and Guyvergenesis, and thus she can be an excellent choice as she had her own personality and she had plenty of potential herself as a romantic partner for Naruto. And if in the H route, she can be the alpha female as well, since Naruto will spend a lot of time on Themyscira before going out into the world and meeting the League, and Donna is able to join Diana and Naruto, instead of one Amazon in the League who have two. She too will possibly develop the ability to use chakra as well. Same thing will follow if she and Naruto are a single pairing had it been Naruto and Diana, and it will be interesting to say the least. And no, she is not the new 52 incarnation but the original, so leave it at that. Artemis, Amazon. Sorry not going to happen due to her past, though Naruto would be more than understanding of her situation. So unless I am convinced otherwise, Artemis is off the table on both fronts. Alexa, Amazon. Potential there since like Diana she is actually a lot more open-minded than the other Amazons. Quite the improvement if you ask me since she has Artemis as her sister. You can bet that if I do the H route and have her in it, Artemis is going to be watching Naruto like a hawk and ready to do some serious hurt on him if he breaks her heart. If this happens and I stick to having Diana and not Donna in the H route, they would actually be the closest to Naruto, though Diana is still the alpha female of the pack. She too will be able to learn chakra, though obviously with her nature and her focus as a healer, she could be an Amazonian version of Sakura and Tsunade the temper and history with Naruto, though she can be quite the firecracker if riled. Same thing applies for Diana and Donna if it is only Naruto and Alexa in the single pairing run. Cheetah, Barbara and Minerva. Actually, I am leaning to the idea of her becoming friends with Naruto, no not friends with benefits, no matter how tempting that might be, and while cured, decides to go back full-time as a regular person though in disguise and make her own way in the world. So unless I am convinced otherwise, unlike in the first Fire Shadow story, Cheetah is off the table. Starfire Coriander. Oh yeah, she is going to be in the story for sure, why wouldn't I put her there anyway? She's drop-dead gorgeous and to quote a line from a fellow writer who I personally felt had nailed it, she is the Care Bear of aliens. This is the original Starfire, not the new 52 version who got a lot of flack for her behavior. I will however bring her new 52 costume along with the old one as I did in the first Fire Shadow, since she looks so hot in it, no pun intended. No, she won't learn chakra since I think her powers are more than enough. Naruto will train her to improve her arsenal. On the side of the H route, well, she's a Tamaranian, so I doubt I need to worry too much on that front, and like in Fire Shadow, she will be on good terms with the other ladies, most of all Diana if she is Theory or Donna if Diana is not in the harem route. On the single route, no said. Supergirl. Akathis is a bit tricky on both the harem route and the single route, and for one obviously strong reason, Superman. I mean Sirius the harem idea with Supergirl might work to a certain extent, but I am still unsure on how exactly will I have to deal with Superman being annoyed or shocked at the idea of his cousin being part of the whole idea of a harem. Now I am not all that sure on the culture of the Kryptonians, namely on the focus on marriage and relationships and the like, so that is kind of iffy for me. And I am referring to canon Kryptonian culture. Now Supergirl grew up most of her life as a Kryptonian, so how she deals with the idea of sharing Naruto if I do use her. But like before, it is still up for debate. No, she won't learn chakra seriously, I doubt she needs any more edges than she already has, though Taijutsu would work. Same boat for her if I go for a single pairing. Though we can take heart in the fact that Naruto is not going to give Superman gray hairs, at least not yet. Raven. Okay, like in Fire Shadow, I may very well have Raven and Naruto in a relationship and possibly a romantic one. Terra is available for Beast Boy, so that covers that end. Since Naruto has gained the trust and respect of Kurama and the others, then Raven would like to somehow gain that level of control over her powers, as well as learn how to trust herself without losing control of her emotions. That would be the crux of the matter that she had to deal with in the long run, and she will be able to deal with this thanks to Naruto, though it will be a while. As for the H route, if I include Raven, she might not be too keen on it, but since Naruto is among the few to help her without strings attached, she might let it slide or possibly make the most of it. No, she will not use Chakrish as her powers, so leave it at that, though she will try to be more creative in their uses. Same with the single relationship route. Ravager Rose Wilson. Yep, District's kid, not the new 52 version but the original one, who is trying to free herself from her father and making a name for herself, doing some good and getting into a good scrap along the way. And yeah, she is attractive and downright deadly, and let's face it, there is an attractive quality. I can bet though that at first she and Naruto won't see eye to eye at first, since she might meet him after someone places a hit on him and she gets interested on the job, so they meet as enemies. Still, he can relate to an extent when it comes to how much she had to endure to be strong, though he is not going to hide his disdain for her father's style of parenting at some extent. On the H route front, she might not be happy with it but will be willing to deal with it when the time comes. But she sure as well will do all she can to make sure she has her alone time with Naruto. As for the single route, we can always have District dare Naruto to a fight to see if he is worthy of Rose. That should be fun. Our girl. No, not the clone, the Earth 2 version, but I would actually try to use the Aim Komi version of her costume for Flavori means Seriouslias if the hole there in the chest area was not distracting enough. Still, she is the older, more mature, and more experienced version of Supergirl, so she may very well have no problems with the H idea if I include her. Plus, she is also her own feisty and independent self, and Naruto respects that, so he knows she can take care of herself. Plus, she might like hanging out with him, since he would see her as a person and not as a sex object. Kind of hard to do with how she looks, but hey, what am I to talk? Still, only time will tell in this case, so it will be fun. Same in the single pairing route, though you can bet Naruto will feel like he is hanging out with a much younger, genuinely younger version of Tsune to some degree. Poison Ivy Pamela. Oh yeah, she is a given, since it would be similar to an extent with how they meet and socialize in the original Fire Shadow, though naturally it will not be in the same manner. Pamela will be surprised for all the same reasons. Naruto is immune to her poisons and is actually more sympathetic to why she did this, and he also tries his best to help her out. She is technically going to be immortal since she is sustained by sunlight and can gain nutrients from the earth as much as getting some from certain food types. Plus, the fact that Pamela is technically interested in women though may change her stance with Naruto, may make her more accepting of the whole H route. But if we go for the single route, well, she is going to mark her territory very well, count on it. Batgirl Barbara Gordon. No, not sure yet, so until I can be convinced to place her in the running, she is pretty much off the table. Zatanna. Oh yeah, another very interesting subject to add to the romance department. She actually would make an excellent addition to the whole thing in either the H route or the single route. And if I recall it right, she is not exactly unused to the idea of being with a man and woman at the same time in the bedroom sense. Now, I could be wrong here, so if anyone can help me in that front, I would be grateful. Besides, Naruto can have the time to get to know her and it can develop into a relationship given enough time. So yeah, Zatanna is in the whole picture in both the H route and the single route. And Pleasish is the epitome of a drop-dead sexy magical girl or magical woman, if there ever was one. Themyscira. To say that the whole nation of the Amazons was in an uproar would have been like saying the sun was a bit too hot in midday. The outcome of the battle between their Princess Diana and the unknown male named Naruto was still hotly debated, as some of them were none too sure that Naruto's victory was genuine. Still, they were willing to wait and find out what exactly was the story behind this man who came to their shores. Not everyone was talking openly about the man right now, as they had their chores to do on the island and they had to do those chores now before they could get into this discussion. Amazons by definition were immortal as long as they remained on Themyscira and would age once more if they left it, only returning to the age they had been in when they left Themyscira once they stepped back on her shores. This also meant that unlike most mortal humans, they did not need to eat or drink to sustain themselves, though they did eat and drink for enjoyment, and feasts were grand occasions that had everyone there on the island to meet and speak to one another on various matters. But for now, however, the idea of a festival was the last thing on their minds, as they were all looking at the direction of the healing house. They wanted answers to who this male was, and they were going to get those answers. In the royal palace. Hippolyta was not quite sure how to take the events herself, even if she had been there the whole time, though she did keep in mind that it was well within the tradition of their people. As she looked out to where the young man had been taken, she turned back to her daughter Diana, who was still surprised at how she had been healed by her opponent. She had no doubt in her mind that the blonde male had thrown some of them into the loop, more so Diana since she had met the man and knew him a bit more than the others who were more content with dealing with him in a more permanent fashion. Hence the need for her to assign more guards to the place and gave them strict instructions not to try anything themselves on the young man. He was now under their protection and laws, and they would not violate the sacred rule of sanctuary for the guest in their house. Are you alright, Diana? I am fine, mother, still surprised that I was defeated like that, yet even more so since he did not even taunt me. I suppose that is true, still we cannot lower our guard around him. I know still, do you think that he may indeed be right about him coming from the Elysium fields? I cannot say, I find the story rather far-fetched, but that is why we will have some of our priestesses and the lasso of truth for us to use and learn the truth of this. Tell me, saw you enjoy that fight, was he that good a fighter? Diana thought about it and after some time nodded. He fights differently from anyone I have seen or sparred with, his style is more acrobatic than most, and he is not one to let himself be on the defensive for long, but he is not someone who is reckless. The time I fought him has told me that he is not to be taken lightly by anyone, as he quickly launches a counter-attack the second he blocks or evades my attacks. That and he seems to adapt very quickly. But when you met him he had actually tried to be diplomatic and leave the island peacefully. Yes, and when I mentioned the law he was actually quite frustrated with the idea of having to fight one of us to be allowed to stay under watch and then be made to forget our home if he desires to leave. Artemis, who arrived and heard all of it, scoffed and spoke. I don't recall him showing that same sentiment in the fight, Your Highness. In fact, if I recall, and no doubt you did as well, he challenged you to a fight. Diana understood Artemis's reaction and replied. I do not deny that, but he chose to fight me because he knew that I was high in the leadership ladder, because he knew that I was a princess and next in line for the throne if anything happens to mother. And we all know from what our history tells us, at times to make a strong case against a warrior society, you have to challenge the strongest of their leadership. I have no doubt had it not been me, he would have challenged our queen had my mother been there. He did not pick to fight me out of ego, Artemis, he did it to make his case strong, which means he is less of a brute than Most actually uses his brain. Artemis frowned a bit but conceded that, and Hippolyta continued. That much is clear, there is something odd going here and I have to be certain this is not the will of the gods or goddesses, but as he has proven himself to us through our laws, then we will still hold true with our plans and intents. For now it would be best to watch his progress and his recovery, and when that is done, we will use the lasso to make sure that we can gain the truth from him. Anna finally spoke her own thoughts on the matter concerning Naruto. Mother, I have to ask, if we do gain the truth from him, what should we do with him? Hippolyta looked at her daughters, Artemis, and then looked out into the city. The idea of a man being here in Themyscira was hard enough for her people as she saw it. Still she was curious on who he was, and once that was dealt with, then she would have to find a solution. I do not know, to be honest, Anna, for now, though our laws will be on his side until he breaks them. And I will not tolerate anyone trying to force him into breaking those laws. He is our guest and I will not have our home be turned into a battleground for no reason. Never again will we stain our homes with blood that is that one under our protection, unless our laws are broken by the one in question. Now Thenwo is watching over the man while he is in the healing house. Artemis was none too pleased by this, but replied. This sister is Your Highness. In the healing house. Naruto was awake and currently looking into the ceiling before moving his right forearm back to his face. His right forearm and hand, to be more precise. Looking at the now restored limb, brought back a lot of memory esnamely when he lost his original arm to Sasuke in combat at the end of the 4th Shinobi War, right after the two of them sealed Kagaya off back into the prison. He flexed his fingers and moved the arm around, still trying to wrap around the fact that it was flesh and blood again. And the same could be said for him. As he slowly rose up to sit on the bed, still looking at his right forearm, he wondered just how was it he was alive, and in the moment he began to think on how he lost his original arm. The pain, it was unlike any pain he had felt before. The only thing that came close to the pain he felt right now was when Sasuke had used the Chidori on his chest. That was how it felt when he lost his right forearm. The pain did not hit him until the end of the battle before he and Sasuke spoke. As he slept, the pain finally hit him, yet he was so exhausted that he did not care about it. Only when he finally awoke that the agony came, the feeling of still having his arm yet knowing that it was blown apart below the elbow. It was only when Sakura finally came to heal him and Sasuke did the pain finally fade away. As he thought about it and the fact that he was once more alive, the blonde placed his hand down and began to try and piece together what happened and of course where to go from here. The feelings he had the day before were not on his mind right now, as he had to deal with another feeling and he could not fully describe it. But the closest thing he could feel that could be able to match this was emptiness. Not emptiness from hunger, thirst, or anything that he used to know. It was just the feeling that something was taken from him and it was nothing physical but spiritual. It took a while before he finally had some idea on what happened to him. The sudden events that happened in the afterlife and how he had been taken from there must have left a void in him. He had felt at peace in the afterlife, contentment, not contentment from a meal, a drink, being with a woman you love, being with family or even a battle. But honest contentment that was truly impossible to fake, all of which came from living a good long life and making the most of it in every moment and every day, then passing on eventually with no regrets in one's heart and mind. Ever since he finally brought an end to Kaguya with Sasuke and Sakura and his final battle with Sasuke and their mending of their past and reaffirming their friendship, it was a long roller coaster of memories for him. As he sat there in this unknown house in this utterly alien world, the memories of his time and the living in his world came back to him. All of the memorious good and the bad, and it was hard to see them all over again, and it was not that he did not want them at all. Naruto knew that these memories made him who he was right now and had been the driving force for him to have made it this far. To suddenly recall all the memories, good and bad, made him feel incomplete, empty. Even some of the more potent memories that made his life whole again. Flashback. He looked at the door of his old apartment, reaching out for the knob with his newly restored right forearm in hand. The memories hit him and he stopped. "I'm home." He always used to say that when he came into his old home, only to be greeted by silence. An empty room with some leftover ramen cups on the ground, some old books, a picture of his team, and utter silence. He looked at the knob once more and gave a sad look, knowing full well that even with his status, his friends, family and allies, he was alone in his home. He made peace with that, but it never meant that the pain was gone. Or the loneliness that came to opening that door. But as he reached for the knob to get it over with, it opened. He recalled his surperson then. "Welcome home, Naruto-kun." He saw Hinata smiling happily and greeting him. He recalled that it had been at least a month after the battle with Homura's descendant and their declaration of love to one another while flying back home. She had planned to move in, though he had tried to reason with her to let him get them a new place. Of his old apartment was not the kind of place for them both, as it was only for one person. But she refused it and she stayed with him. He looked at her in surprise and she seemed to realize something and began to apologize for taking things too quickly and not waiting for him to say that he was home. He looked at Hinata deeply and saw how much love was there in her face, her eyes and her smile, and he couldn't help himself as he moved to hug her. "Then Naruto-kun." He listened to her voice and felt her close to him, and for the first time he was crying to tears of pain and loneliness, but happiness. "I'm home." And he meant it. End of flashback. That memory was very potent to the blonde ninja, as he recalled that there were also several memories. The first was him being there to hold Hinata's hand as she gave birth to Boruto, where Shizune, Tsunade, and Sakura aided in bringing their firstborn son into the world. It was the happiest moment of his life and Hinata's to finally hold his son. And then he recalled how he held her hand when they had Himawari, where Tsunade, Shizune, and Sakura helped bring his beloved daughter into the world. He saw how Hinata smiled while holding their daughter, while Boruto was nearby watching his baby sister take her first breaths. He saw the awe at the sight and his son asking him and Hinata if he was that tiny when he was born, much to their amusement. He smiled even more as he remembered Himawari open her eyes for the first time and gave off her first cry when she saw him, Hinata, and his older brother Boruto. Seeing how happy Himawari was as she ran on the field with Boruto behind her, as they were now in the age to be able to move and run, watching out for his little sister made him smile, and he held Hinata close to him as well, not planning to let go of this moment. He moved to watch Himawari make a crown of flowers in her hands and the placing it on her head while smiling as the sun hit her face, as Boruto was also laughing happily as he chased some flying butterflies. He looked to see Hinata smiling back and enjoying this moment. All those memories from his childhood all the way to his married life and his death took a lot to get used to as they came flooding back into his mind. As the memories rolled through his mind bit by bit, the feeling of emptiness grew even more and he felt the desire to close his mind to the dreams and memories. But no, would not close them away, they forged him to the person he was before he died peacefully in his sleep. He recalled that moment very well. After all, it was at the end of his life. He had come back to Konoha after being there to see to the funerals of some of his closest friends outside of the Land of Fire. And while he had made peace with their passing, he too knew that it was his time. He knew it as he was feeling that he was coming close to his death, but he still decided to come here. He visited all of those who knew him, but not before seeing his son and daughter and their children and spouses. He spoke to them and made sure to pass on his last words, played with the little tykes one more time before they were tucked into bed. Himawari and Boruto knew that his time had come and he consoled them, telling them that he was not afraid, he lived a fulfilling life, and that he had absolute faith in them, as their grandparents had faith in him when he saw them again. He also promised to tell their mom how much they had grown and how they would be the ones who would bring a bright future to others and also to their own generation. As soon as he bid them farewell, he moved to look at the place where Tucci and AM had their place and he smiled at how the business had improved and under the control of AM's kids and their own spouses. Both had long since passed on, and after he paid his respects, he moved to see his old apartment, and while it was now inhabited and cleaned up, his room was left as is, per his request, though it was usually cleaned up and kept safe. He planned to give it up once he passed on, but for now he ran his hands on every bit of furniture, every bit of the wall, his old bed, everything, all of that brought back a lot of memories, bad memories when he was growing up, then good ones when he finally made friends, family figures and more. He looked at the place once more and soon locked it up to move in towards the old training field. He stood there before the logs and soon his memories made him recall how things started out for him, Sasuke and Sakura. He gave a slight smile as he ran his hands on a particular log in the middle. After some time he moved to the Hokage monument and looked at the faces of the cage long before he took the mantle and then passed it to Konohamaru when he was ready to be given that position after all he had done. He looked at Hashirama, his spiritual predecessor, Tobamaru, the old man Hiruzen, his father Minato, Tsunade, his mother grandmother figure, Kakashi, his old sensei, and Finella himself. He thought of all he had learned and experienced since he began to reach for his dream of being Hokage and eventually the dream of Jiraiya and Hagamoro. He also thought on his times with Tsunade and Kakashi as well as Konohamaru. He recalled his words to them all. "We'll see one another soon." He then came to the cemetery of Konoha and looked at all of the headstones, all the names of those he knew so long ago. So many names and so many memories, good and bad, as he moved through them, touching each headstone, recalled all that happened. He soon moved forward until arriving at one in particular. Hinata Hyuga Uzumaki, wife of Naruto Uzumaki. He recalled crying as he placed a small batch of Hinata's favorite flowers on her grave. He also smiled at the memories seeing her tombstone involved in him. All the good times, the bad times, the awkward times, all of it, and then he sat down and began to look about and for a brief moment saw all of his friends and family, allies, and more. He used to have a fear of ghosts, and he still did on occasion, even at his Ajibit for Ansa was not afraid. How could he be when he looked to see the faces and forms of so many friends? He could feel his life ebbing away and he delved deep into his mind, chatting with Kurama and the other Biju and bid them farewell with him, finally making Kurama smile and even shed a tear, something Kurama had never done after Hagamoro died. He went back from his mind as he looked at the faces of his generation, all of them, and then saw his beloved wife smiling at him nearby sitting on her tomb, and he spoke to her. "We will see each other soon, Hinata Koi." And she responded with the same loving smile she had for him with a blush as well. "I will be waiting, Naruto-kun." He smiled and looked at the starry sky, recalling how he used to do that as a kid when he was on his own and then closed his eyes and let his life leave him. And when he opened his eyes she was in the afterlife surrounded by those who he knew from so long ago. And nowhere he wasn't, he felt the emptiness again, felt the desire to go back once more. Coming back to Luffy was never his land. He had lived well, fought well, and made all he had dreamed, what Jiraiya dreamed, what everyone he knew dreamed a reality. And his time was over and yet here he was again. Yet he was not on his home, not in his world as it were. But somewhere else that made no sense to him in any way, shape and form. But what can I do? How can I go back? So deep was his thoughts on his situation that he was unable to notice the arrival of the Amazon healer until she spoke to him. Naruto knew that he was not in a dangerous situation right now and managed to resist his battle-honed instincts from attacking her. He knew that doing so would take away any protection he had gained and he was not in the mood to be causing trouble again with the Amazons. The Amazon was a redeed, wearing simple robes and having a gentle demeanor of butter. She in fact struck him in the same manner as a medic nin or a doctor, in the manner of Shizune, Tsunade, Sakura, Ino, Hinata, and Amaru. He also could tell that she was also something of a scholar, had hanged out with Sakura long enough to see her working on books and whatnot. He could tell that she was capable of combat and was no doubt trained to defend herself if needed. He gave her a smile and greeted her, even though to be perfectly honest, he was still reeling from the events that brought him back to the realm of the living and trying to make sense of his feelings of emptiness in him. He there. Alexa gave a slight smile, hoping that her nervousness did not show. She was unused to having a man in her care the last time. Well, to be honest, there was no last time. No man had ever come to her homeland at all without being dealt with by her sisters in some fashion or another. But now. She looked at him and saw. I haste that no, I can't jump to conclusions now. I must learn more. She thought all of this quickly but knew that she had to play the part and reveal nothing to the man. And she would be lying to anyone who could see her and speak to her if she said she was alright. She was anything but alright in this current situation she was in. She, like her sister, had seen what men were able to do and had done to women, and while she was not Asha style as her fellow Amazons, she was nevertheless very uneasy about the man being here. Even more so when one considered the fact that the man in question had fought her friend Diana and had won that fight. "Hello, I see you are awake, are you feeling well?" Naruto gave a nod, aware that despite her calm look and smile, the Redeed was nervous to be near him. Still, the fact that she was trying to be nice meant that she was not as angry with men as the others on this island were. If she was like the rest she would be a lot more hostile about it. He decided that he would still show that he was not a threat to her and be friendly, besides she was as far as he could see a gentle sort, ready to defend herself if need be, but not really the kind who did fighting a lot. I am Final things considered. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, who are you if I may ask? Alexa smiled a bit more, sensing that despite what she had seen earlier, the man was sincere about his greetings and was apparently a friendly person. Therefore she decided to pay that back in kind while observing him carefully and hoping that nothing bad would happen to him while here on the island. Unlike her fellow Amazons, including her sister Artemis, yet also excluding Diana and Donna, she did not really have that big a negative history with men and was more open-minded about such things in the same way Diana and Donna were, though Donna was not as open as her older sister. My name is Alexa, I am pleased to meet you, Naruto. I must say I have never heard of such a name for a man. Naruto chuckled a bit at that as he recalled just how he got that name and some of the annoyances he got when people used the fish cake meaning more than the maelstrom meaning. Yeah, I suppose it is different. My godfather gave me that name and my parents approved of it. The stab of memories and the pain of the loss of being in the afterlife struck Naruto again and he gave a slight frown and had his vision get cloudy again. But he quickly managed to recover from the sudden memories and decided to focus on the here and now. He was unaware that his sudden lapse into his previous feelings and thoughts was seen by Alexa and she was mentally worried what this would mean. But like him she recovered enough and decided to focus on what she came here to do. And that was to see to his medical condition, provide him with food and drink and then take him to be met by their queen and priestesses. But first she had to make sure that what she had seen was not a trick of the eye. I see. Well, I have been asked to bring you some food and drink as well as ascertain your medical condition. I have to apologize though since there will be some precautions on our part as you are well. What? Amani, understand if you are confused and all, but we Amazons have a less than stellar view towards men. Naruto gave a slight grin and replied. The welcoming group that was there in the beach kind of told me that much already. I won't though, there are indeed men who you have to be wary of and be ready to fight against. And I know that there are men who really do a lot of painful things to women. No worries, I have no plans to do anything against you or anyone on the island. Alexa nodded and continued with her work, placing several dishes there, simple but flavorful soup, some warm bread, cooked beef and some fruit. Next to it was a glass of water and a pitcher as well. She excused herself and allowed him to eat while she went to the storage room to get some medical gear she needed along with a special relic. Naruto decided to eat and soon he was distracted by both the food and his memories. So distracted in fact that he was not aware that Alexa had used said relic on him, however it was not some form of offensive tool, but a scanning device. And what it showed to the Amazon was something she had not expected to see. She decided to carry on after hiding the relic from the blonde male's sight and once she was done with her work, she decided to go and report his status to Hippolyta and the others. She herself had a lot to ask him but figured that it would all have to wait. Later. Diana and the rest of the Amazons were assembling in the hall to finally see the man, but Diana decided to speak to her mother first to see what the plan was. But her plans to speak took a back seat when she saw that Alexa was with her mother. And the two Amazons were very much deep in discussion on something no doubt about Naruto, since it was Alexa who had gone to the healing house to check on him. As A got closer, she heard Hippolyta speak more seriously, making her all the more curious on why this was happening. Are you saying that he is indeed soul sick, Alexa? Yes, my queen. Diana was curious and listened a bit more. I see that is indeed a concern, but are you certain of it? I can see no other reason for his state. When I found him, he was so wrapped up in his thoughts that he did not respond for what seemed to be, and when he looked back at me, now seeing me, I saw the same expressions in the eyes, your highness, and they are at the same depth that those afflicted with the condition have been recorded to suffer. H also reacted the same way when he spoke of his name being given by his godfather and his parents. To be sure, I used one of the artifacts we had in the healing house's storage area. And that is the Eye of the Soul, and the artifact did show that he is indeed afflicted. I may not have much experience in this area, but I have no doubt that the man is indeed afflicted with soul sickness if what I saw and what the artifact showed to me is to be considered. Soul sickness was a rare condition, a very rare condition that only the Amazons knew of it in a sense. This was recorded on their scrolls in the healing house's inner library, and why that was the case was fairly easy to understand. Considering how they and all of their elder sisters were created, not merely from earth and clay, but from the souls of women and girls who had died in a variety of causes, most died because of the actions of men or the elements. Many of the souls who were reborn were pleased to finally be given a new life, away from the ills of the world and from the hands of men who had done them great harm and inflicted sufferings on them aplenty. But there were very rare moments when a reborn Amazon in ancient times would have a huge amount of melancholy, regret, emptiness, and a feeling of despair in being brought back to the realm of the living. Their healers at first were confused by this as the Amazons in question were exceedingly healthy until their priestesses discovered that on very rare instances, the souls of women who would form the basis of the Amazon people were women who had been happy in life and had truly lived well before death took them. These souls were able to enter the Elysium fields and live in peace, but then somehow were brought back to life, taken from in a sense paradise for the departed. The result of this was a feeling utter emptiness, anger, betrayal and pain, not of the flesh but the soul. Thus the malady was labeled as soul sickness. An artifact given to them by one of the few male gods they were on good terms with, Aesculapius, gave them the said artifact known as the Eye of the Soul and said that it would help them see the condition and state of a reborn soul, if needed to see if they were afflicted with soul sickness. But because it was so rare it eventually was placed aside as nearly all Amazons after the attack of Hercules and his thugs on their island were glad to be given a new life away from men and the hatred that was with them. And the few who were afflicted with it eventually recovered and made do with their new lives with the artifacts stored away. So to know that the man who was here with them now was afflicted by soul sickness was very surprising and telling. Hippolyta nodded at that and considered this new bit of information carefully. It was here that Diana spoke to her to find out what she was thinking. "Mother, I take that means that you now believe that he is indeed from the Elysium fields." Hippolyta looked at Diana and replied, while still in thought. "True, the Eye of the Soul is powerful even if it is only used for healing. If the eye senses soul sickness in him, then I am indeed accepting of the fact that he is from the Elysium field, sir, rather his people's version of it. You did mention that he was unaware of the term himself, correct, Diana?" "Yes, mother, he was confused when I mentioned it after all." "Why do you think that is the case?" "I do not know. I can try and ask a petition from Hera and the other gods to see if any soul has indeed left the fields unwillingly to be certain, but I have my doubts indeed on it, so we must be more careful on our interrogation of him." Alexa was a bit worried about that and Diana noted that from her longtime friend. "Is something the matter, Alexa?" "I feel that we may need to be careful, your highness. If this Naruto is indeed afflicted with soul sickness, then reliving the memories may have a dangerous effect on him. The scrolls have stated that some of our sisters in the past who had the sickness had become violent and dangerous because of reliving those memories. We may have helped ease them through it, but this is a man we are talking about. None of us have any first-hand experience on something like this. And I fear that if we are not careful, we may very well make him attack us. I cannot say that he will, but with soul sickness, I cannot be certain." Hippolyta nodded in agreement to that. This was indeed a rare event, as no man had not only ever come to Themyscira without them knowing, but no man had ever claimed to have come back from the dead either. "I understand your worries, Alexa, we will take precautions to be certain, still we must get some answers from this man of his story and see what our next course of action will be. Is he well enough to come here?" "Yes, your highness, I will bring him here once I am able to see if he is now at full strength after the meal I gave him and some extra rest." Later. Naruto soon arrived, under escort to be sure, and Diana decided it would be best for her to accompany Naruto, since she was the one who he would know more than the others at this point. She saw the wariness and some hatred directed at the blonde, but noted that instead of either being afraid or angry, the young man seemed to merely be curious but calm and utterly unafraid of them all. This made her wonder just what was his story, since he was by far one of the few if any men who had ever been allowed to set foot here without being attacked by her fellow Amazons. She looked to see Artemis glaring at Naruto, and seeing Naruto see the look, instead of being angry or fearful of the wrathful look of the elite guard captain, the blonde seemed to calmly look back, but show no mocking looks or anything that would be seen as male superiority and ego, even if captured. Her empathy sense told her that he seemed to such looks and had long since overcame the normal reaction to such looks. That made her wonder even more, since such a level of acceptance was hard to achieve, and in such a way as well, since there would always be lingering resentment in the hearts of any person, man or woman. But her thoughts were placed aside as Naruto was before her mother, and she as well as his escorts moved aside as Hippolyta spoke to Naruto while carrying her queen's staff with the owl on top of the staff. "Greetings to you, Naruto Uzumaki, I am Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons of Themyscira." Naruto then gave a warm smile and bowed in open respect and courtesy to Hippolyta. "Greetings to you as well, Queen Hippolyta, my thanks to you for allowing me to remain here under your laws. I will endeavor to prove myself worthy of the protection given to me, and I apologize for any stress or inconvenience my presence has caused you and your people." That surprised many of the Amazons as they had never heard of a man willingly bowing in respect to a woman. Hippolyta was very curious now, and the same applied to Diana and to Donna as well as Artemis and Alexa. But the blonde Amazon queen decided to ask questions for another time, as she decided to repay the courtesy in kind and also get down to what was the purpose of this meeting. "Thank you for that, Naruto Uzumaki, now I trust you have recovered enough." "I have, I believe that I did promise to speak about myself, you and your people, am I correct to assume that you wish to know my story now?" You are correct, are you well enough for this? I am, though I will admit that my story is a long one. Be that as it may, we will be willing to listen. Your claim to have come back to life from the Elysian fields has caught our interest, since it has happened before in our history, but it has never spoken of a man doing that. I do suspect however that your people have another name for such a place. Yes, we call the pure world your highness. The Polita nodded and soon one of the soldiers came forward with a coil of golden rope in her hand. Naruto was curious about that since considering how the soldier carried it, he was highly doubtful it was an ordinary piece of rope. Even more so since it seemed to have a faint glow of sorts on it which no ordinary rope should have, which made him even more curious and convinced that it was not here for show. The fact it looked like it was made from solid gold also added to the idea that was a. He decided not to ask though since he had a feeling that he would learn of its purpose soon enough. This is the lasso of truth, it has the power to make those caught by it to speak the truth and only the truth. I have no doubt in my mind that you know already why this was brought here in this meeting. You wish to know if my story is the truth or a falsehood. I don't blame you for the caution your highness, from what I was able to understand from my previous meetings, your people don't have any good experiences with men. And thus my presence is something not many here feel comfortable with, even though I will state once more that I have no prior history with your people and I have no desire to be your enemy. The Polita nodded. At least you are able to see why we are doing this, to make sure that what you tell us is more to the truth. I have asked some of our priestesses to use a spell to allow us to see these memories of yours. That made Naruto frown a bit more, the idea of someone being allowed to see all of his memories was not something he felt all that comfortable with. He was a ninja after all, and there were some secrets he preferred to keep to himself, namely more personal memories that he felt no one he did not trust had no business of knowing. He decided to speak his mind and allow them to know his stance on the matter. I see, I can understand that part your highness, as words alone may not be enough to convey my story. But there are memories that are of great importance to me that I will not reveal to you and your sisters. I will not take kindly to those memories being revealed without my consent in this, so I hope that you and your priestesses can leave those memories alone. Artemis naturally took offense to that statement and walked over to the blonde with a glare. You presume to order our queen male. Naruto however did not back down and replied calmly. I did not order your queen nor am I showing disrespect to her and in turn your people, there are secrets that are mine and mine alone, and they are precious to me. Just as you do not trust me, I do not trust you, trust is a two-sided coin, one has to give trust in order to receive trust to make it work. You have your secrets I have mine, but those secrets will not endanger your people, I only wish them to remain mine until I feel ready to speak of them. If she is willing to grant me this, then it is the first step for me to trust your people. Artemis glared and spoke her mind once more. You have no right to deny what we want. You are not one of the people who call this place home, and as such you are suspect until you are proven to not be a threat. Naruto did not flinch at all and replied. So even after I have won my right to stay here under your laws, you would then take away anything you want from me against my desire for it to remain with me? I have broken no laws, and I have no desire to cause trouble or harm anyone, I made a simple request to have memories important to me remain mine, and they are no danger to you and your people, and instead I am still being threatened. What law have I broken then by requesting this? Artemis was angry at that, but then Hippolyta intervened. She knew why Artemis distrusted Naruto or rather men in general, but this was bordering on insubordination. And no ruler can tolerate that when there was no reason to warrant such a response. Enough Artemis. He has indeed earned the right to be here, you and everyone here witnessed that happen, and I will not have our customs and laws be cast aside. I know the reason why you have your distrust Artemis, but our laws protect him from that. Your Highness. Stand down Artemis and calm yourself, that is an order. Iridide sighed and nodded before moving away from Naruto, slowly showing that despite her acceptance of the order, she was still not going to let Naruto out of her sight. Hippolyta sighed once more and spoke to Naruto. What sort of memories do you speak of? My personal memories your highness, all of which are dear to me, and I will not let anyone looks at them without my consent. Besidesi have just come from the afterlife. What dangers can memories from one who has already been in death's realm and from another world that is unlike your own have for your people? Hippolyta thought it over and decided that he had a point, if he is indeed someone who came from another world and had already died, then his memories were not of their world and thus would have no bearing to her people and homeland. Thus she decides to focus only on the vital memories and leave what was private alone. Maud would have ignored this request from the blonde male and take all his memories, but Hippolyta was no such person, she had her own secrets and she knew the value of keeping them close until one was ready to reveal them to the right people. I will agree with what you have asked for, the lasso will tell us after all if you are lying. Naruto nodded and soon was guided to a chair, and the priestesses, numbering at least 4 were on the corners nearby, each using a crystal sphere that seemed to be moved slowly with various colors. Soon they glowed even more as the priestesses chanted, and soon Hippolyta placed a rope on him and he felt the energy coming from the rope into him. Hippolyta then spoke calmly, knowing that once the questioning started, the spheres would reveal the memories of the man for them to see. These spheres shall show your memories to us, at least the memories that you are willing to show. We shall ask questions, and the lasso shall compel you to speak truthfully. Alright, but I assure ya my story is a long one. All the events that made me into the person I am were placed into motion centuries before I was ever born. Now that got the Amazon's attention, and namely Hippolyta's, as she could tell from his expression that the man was not lying to her or anyone. Author's note. Now for everyone who is reading this, here's a warning, this is me trying to recap the whole story of Naruto's world and him in general, so for those who already know this, feel free to skip this section. It's a long one since I do plan to cover every event, even the fillers in the anime, though I will generalize them as best I can without going way too deep in detail. The only exception being the movies and the games, with the exclusion of Naruto. The last, since technically it is the ending. I will however try to add some game elements, namely weapons and stuff, just for fun. Now before I get myself barbecked for this chapter, let me make one thing clear, Naruto has already lived a full life before he died, and while he will keep some secrets, he has already made peace with his past and does not let it bother him anymore. And keep in mind, it's not like he is telling the media and DC this, but the Amazons, and they are more open-minded when it comes to the supernatural due to their origins and nature, so this will not be breaking any laws, since this takes place long before Diana arrives to help the League deal with the Imperium. Now then, back to the story. They watched the images before them as Hippolyta had the lasso of truth on Naruto, and it was now glowing, and thus they knew that what they were seeing now with the aid of the priestess was not some fabrication. The blonde Amazon queen began to ask the ninja the history of his world, and Naruto replied in kind, as the lasso made him speak the truth, and he told them of what he learned in not just his history books, but his tomes, speaking to Hagomoro and Homura, as well as Hashirama himself, Tobamaru and even Madara when he was in the afterlife. Hippolyta herself was looking carefully at the images before her to make sure that what she saw was indeed from the mind of the man. They saw the images of Naruto's world in the days in the past, where countless wars were waged between humans of both genders, but none of them had used the powers that Naruto had used before. The Amazons were soon seeing a massive tree, massive to the point it was a mountain, and thereon it was a fruit of considerable size, not gigantic, but more than enough to make them realize that anyone who would try to eat would have to spend more than a few hours to finish it. What is this? The Shinju, a tree born centuries before my time, it was also called the God Tree. And what of the fruit I see, why is that significant? The Shinju fed on the blood and flesh of the many people who fought in countless wars all over the land. With the blood and life it absorbed, the Shinju would bear a fruit that was filled with immense power. It was said long ago that whoever ate the fruit of the Shinju would gain untold powers to the point that they literally would become a god. But it was considered taboo to eat of it, and many believed it as the origin of the fruit was considered dark and malevolent, so whatever power coming from the consumption of the fruit was deemed too dangerous. I see. The Amazons were silent at this and continued to watch the images as they saw hundreds of warriors who were unknown to them fighting and dying before the tree, letting their blood and bodies to soak and litter the land, and all the while the tree remained utterly uncaring for what transpired around it. Hippolyta then spoke once more, all the while keeping the lasso on Naruto and then making sure to see if that was all. Once she had seen enough on what she and the others saw and were satisfied, she decided to continue with her questioning. And what happened next? Naruto then spoke while the lasso glowed to ensure that he spoke the truth at all times, as he began to dig once more into his memories of what the past was like in the time of Hagomoro and Homura's mother. The cycles of war continued until a princess from another land came with a desire to end all wars and bring peace to the land. She felt that only with the power of the Shinju could peace be achieved. Her name was Kagaya Otsutsuki. The images shifted to a woman that none of the Amazons had ever seen before. She carried herself indeed as a member of royalty, yet she was not human in all forms. Strange horn-like growths were seen on either side of her head going upwards and curling inward, giving the impression of ears. Her eyes were pure white, and yet there seemed to be something about her that spoke of power. As they watched as she soon moved to the tree and consumed the fruit, in that moment after she had finished consuming the fruit which literally glowed with power. The very air seemed to crackle and vibrate around this woman, and even if it was memories only, Hippolyta was not blind to the power that was radiating from her. What happened to this Kagaya? Naruto told the Amazons on how with the power she gained from defying the taboo, Kagaya single-handedly brought an end to all the wars and conflicts that raged in the land. Her power over the elements, space-time, dimensions and even her very own body and life force made her become the epitome of power in his realm's history, to the point that she was by all rights immortal, turned into a divine deity goddess. The Shinju soon bonded with her, and with those powers she indeed became a goddess. The people who she saved called her the rabbit goddess, and while some feared that her powers, gained from the Shinju, would corrupt her, she resisted it. Her compassion, benevolence, trust in humanity's ability for good, and love for life helped her counter the temptations, and eventually she had sons, 2 sons, Hagamoro and Homura. The sight of the once blood-soaked lands that were sites of so much death by the hands of men, now blooming with life, was heartwarming to the Amazons. Even more so when they saw her put an end of any pointless bloodshed and suffering. Hippolyta was also pleased to see this before she kept in mind just what Naruto spoke of the taboo in consuming the fruit of the Shinju. What happened to Kaguya after she ruled over your world's lands and people? There was indeed peace, as few of the more violent humans would oppose Kaguya's power, and over time she was able to make them surrender to her might or to her words. In time, however, the lingering fear that the power's dark origins would poison Kaguya finally came to pass. The trust she had with humanity was gradually lost over time as the power she wielded corrupted her, turning her from a loving, benevolent, trusted, and respected ruler into a corrupt, vile, and brutal tyrant. She went from being the rabbit goddess to the demon in the times to come as her humanity, and her heart was lost in the power that she commanded. She developed a belief that she alone should command chakra itself and that no one can take it from her. And she did so brutally. She placed the humans who once worshipped her and trapped in the infinite Tsukiyomi. What is that? A powerful genjutsu or illusion technique that traps the victims into a realm that is based on their deepest and most treasured hopes and dreams. A heaven, as it were, but based on lies and falsehoods. With this, she robbed her former allies of their free will, their hopes and dreams, and fed them to the Shinju. Diana was wide-eyed, and she was not the only one, as the Amazons watched Kaguya, who now had a dark and malevolent aura about her, feed the people she entrapped into the genjutsu, as it was called, to the tree. They watched as the roots of the tree took their victims and then covered them in cocoons, and there they saw them being trapped in their dreams and their life being fed into the tree. They all watched in horror as some of the peoplemen, women and even children, as well as even toddlers of any age, were being transformed into things that looked human but were not. What are those things? Naruto responded while still in the grip of the lasso. Thus none of the Amazons could say that he was lying. They are called white zetsu. This is the fate of those people trapped in the Shinju and in the infinite Tsukiyomi. They are nothing now but living weapons to defend the Shinju and served as Kaguya's personal army, forever serving her will. Those she released from the genjutsu were utterly horrified of her powers now, and thus who once helped save humanity in my world had now become their greatest tyrant and most feared and reviled being. She also used pieces of the Shinju to create living beasts of destruction to further reinforce her rule and silence any dissenters. In a sense, this shows that evil does not discriminate in terms of gender. Men and women can cause great harm and commit great horror and evil. Kaguya is living proof of that. But her greatest sin came not merely from her actions on the Pyopla but on her own sons. Some Amazons privately wished to deny such a claim, others were feeling a bit more vocal about that, but since they knew that the lasso made Naruto speak only the truth, then they could not deny it at all. Diana was also very worried by what they were seeing as the Shinju took the life force of people and turning them into beings she had not yet seen before. They resembled the zombies that at times wandered into their land from Higate of Tartarus, but Thesui are sentient and able to move and fight if need be. He explained that when Hagamoro and Homura displayed chakra for the first time, Kaguya was filled with love for her sons, as any mother would, but this love was tainted by fear and hatred. Fear for the fact that they may use their powers to undermine her rule over the people. And hatred for the fact that they had chakra which was in her now corrupted mind, rightfully her own. But that love she had in her heart prevented her from slaying her sons when they were still children. But over time, when Hagamoro and Homura displayed new powers, with the elder showing the Rinnegan and the younger showing the Byakugan, as well as Hagamoro teaching humanity how to connect to one another using chakra, that love was lost. Driven by her anger, fear, and hatred, any maternal feelings that still lingered in Kaguya's heart were drowned out, and soon she made her move. They watched as Kaguya secretly fused herself with the Shinju and became a truly powerful monster. This was all from the memories of his time speaking with Hagamoro, both when he was alive and when they met one another in the realm of spirits. Hagamoro and Homura now saw that the mother who they loved and respected had utterly lost herself to madness and greed. Her desire to wield chakra as her own had now taken all sense of compassion from her, and her desires for her power overshadowed any love she once had for them and for humanity as a whole. They saw that she would willingly do all she could to reclaim what she felt was rightfully hers, even if it meant killing them and all others, as well as the hope of the people who she once aided. Thus, to save humanity and end the sins of their mother, both brothers fought her and sealed her. The Amazons watched the titanic battle between the now transformed Kaguya and her sons Hagamoro and Homura, who, despite knowing they faced their mother in combat, did so to end her tyranny. The battle waged between them was indeed fierce and brutal, as the land was torn asunder and the skies were blacked and winds howled all over the land. It was in a sense like watching the story of how Zeus and the gods fought with Kronos and the Titans all those centuries ago. And this was similar, though it was a mother against her sons who had defied her to save the lives of the people who had once worshipped their parent but now lived in abject fear of her. They had to defeat her vast army of white Zetsu before facing her. Soon they witnessed Kagaya's defeat and sealing by both Hagamoro and Homura, and how with his brother's help, Hagamoro sealed the power of his mother's monstrous form into himself while creating the moon and taking his mother's now powerless corpse, the Jito statue as Naruto described it, and Homura taking it to secure it and also watch over it in humanity. Hagamoro would remain and hopefully begin the process of undoing the damage their mother inflicted on the world in her madness. Naruto stopped for a brief moment and the Amazons took the time to digest this until Hippolyta nodded for the priestesses to continue. Naruto sighed and carried on once the lasso glowed once more as his memories were accessed again. With Kagaya's defeat and her being sealed away in the moon of my world, Hagamoro went to work in trying to teach a new path for people. Because of his own powers, he understood the nature of chakra and created a set of beliefs and teachings to allow people to tap into their chakra and reach out to others in order to understand one another beyond the veil of words. He called it the Ninshu or the Shinobi sect, whereby allowing one's chakra to branch out to others, one gains a greater sense of understanding and community with one another. Because of what he had done as his brother had kept himself hidden in the moon and no one aware of the true origins of the 10-tailed beast, he was deified into a living god and known as the savior of the world. With the Rinnegan, his own vast power, and the powers taken from the Shinju Kagaya, Hagamoro lived up to that ideal for a very long time and earned another title for his deed, Jinchuriki. That word confused the Amazons and Alexa, very curious herself though still reeling from what she had seen, asked. What is this Jinchuriki you speak of? It means human sacrifice. By sealing the powers of the Shinju's transformed 10-tailed beast state in the eyes of those who had survived to see the battle, Hagamoro became the living prison and the jailer of the Shinju's vast power. The ultimate sacrifice in the sense for anyone to make is such a choice or burden is not one taken lightly, though in time, that title too would change. Hippolyta took that into account as well and told Naruto to carry on. They would get their answers soon enough, but already this was a lot to take in for them. The idea of a person being used as a living prison for a being of immense power sounded like demonic possession. Yet this Hagamoro was willing to do so in order to ensure that the power would not find any easy means of escape. The images changed to show Hagamoro training two young men as Naruto continued from what he had learned in his time in the spirit world when he spoke to the sage. But even he knew that he was mortal and he knew that in order for the dream of peace and the path of Ninshu to made, he would need to have to pass his teachings to a successor. He also knew that he would face many trials in order to heal the world from any remains of his mother's now corrupted legacy. One such legacy would one day come to ruin it all. Diana was worried by this and decided to venture a question. What legacy is that? Her will given form even though she had been stripped of her power and sealed in the moon, she was able to hide a piece of herself and in time, it would be the hidden source of misery and pain for a long time to come. The queen wanted to know just what was going on and what this dark legacy was, but decided that for now that can wait until a better time presented itself. She was curious on just what happened afterwards and she had no doubt the others were as well. What happened to Hagamoro and who was his successor? The queen and her fellow Amazons got their answer as the images showed Hagamoro training two young men in what appeared to be an open field with a banner in the background. Both young men however lacked the features that made Hagamoro, Kagaya and Homura stand out among humans as they were very much human in face and form. Hagamoro eventually found a wife and had two children of his own, Indra and Asura. They would be his legacy to the world as well as a potential successor. Naruto then explained what he was told of both the soul incarnations of the two famed sons of the Sage of the Six Paths while showing them the images of the two both in their youth and in their early adulthood. Indra was the eldest and in many ways the ideal son, even in his youth Indra's power and physical prowess were exceptional. He inherited his father's potent charka, a special set of eyes known as the Sharingan, based on the Rin Sharingan that his grandmother once had and speared. All of this power and ability allowed him to learn and master many arts in his time. One such achievement was to create a battle avatar made entirely from chakra that had power comparable to his grandmother Kagaya. Indra's battle prowess was such that he alone could face off two armies if not more and win in combat. This however made him prefer to be by himself and while some were drawn to him for one reason or another, he shunned others. Despite this, he was seen as the ideal son and the possible inheritor to his father's legacy. Asura was the exact opposite of his brother, he had zero talent and power, and many felt that despite being the son of the sage, he was a failure. But this did not deter Asura as he never hated or loathed his brother and father and sought his own path to power. Unlike Indra who shunned others, Asura sought allies and friends, as well as developing a strong training regime and work ethic in himself. But the support of his allies, friends, and followers as well as the same training regime and work ethic, Asura soon unleashed his one power, inheriting the body, vitality, chakra, and life force of his father more than ample power to finally leave the shadow of his brother and stand side by side with him. And Naruto's words proved to be very accurate as the two brothers who had once been different in terms of power and ability were now standing side by side. Naruto then explained that over the next few years, Hagomoro felt his death coming and over time called both his sons to him and asked them a simple but profound question. A question that would shape the future of the world as many others from other groups of people began to use his teachings to unlock chakra. What is the means to achieve peace? Indra answered. Power. Asura replied. Love. This confused the Amazons a bit more, and soon they got their answer as Naruto explained that in terms of belief, Indra believed that peace can be achieved through the use of power, or in this case the sword to show that the one who had the greatest level of power could put an end to war and be the one to defend the peace from all who sought to break it, something that the Amazons found repulsive in a sense. As for Asura, because he had seen the value of working with others and also the value of people, he believed that through diplomacy and understanding, peace can be achieved and not by one person, but by all. This belief had a strong appeal to the father of Indra and Asura as he felt that perhaps his younger son had indeed found an answer that could release many possibilities. And it made him find a new solution concerning his own worries about the power of the Shinju and his mother. He was well aware that as it was if he died, then the power of his mother would be unleashed again to cause great destruction and hatred. Asura's belief soon made Hagomoro try a new plan. But first he named Asura his successor. The Amazons murmured with one another at such a choice until Donna spoke. How did Indra react? Naruto sighed a bit and replied. Indra was understandably furious at this and vowed that he was not going to allow this to stand much to the dismay of Asura, for Asura loved and respected his brother and his father, thus he tried his best to mend fences with Indra. But Indra refused to listen and soon this would be the beginning of a centuries-long blood feud. As for Hagomoro, despite his own feelings of failing his sons as he had hoped that Indra would follow Asura, focused on the next part of his plan that had been inspired by Asura and of an old prophecy that he knew would come to pass in the future. Using his mastery of the yin and yang aspect of chakra, he separated the chakra of the Shinju into 9 living beings of power and gave them form, intelligence, and sentience. From this action were born the Biju. Biju? The tailed beasts in my world's Tongathi were in essence the sons and daughters of Hagomoro, as 2 of them were female. They were Shukaku the one-tailed sand raccoon, Matatabi the 2-tailed fire cat, Isobu the 3-tailed armored turtle, Son Goku, the 4-tailed ape sage, Kuku, the 5-tailed dolphin horse, Seiken the 6-tailed slug, Chamei the 7-tailed stag beetle, Jayuki the 8-tailed bull octopus, and Kurama, the 9-tailed fox. The images showed the 9 Biju while they were still very much infants, but even at such a tender age were massive in the eyes of the Amazons. All of them were literally as big as some of the structures in Themyscira, and considering that they were indeed infants, the Amazons wondered just what they would be like at their full physical maturity. They heard the words that Hagomoro spoke to them, and to their surprise, some of the Biju were saddened, and the one known as Kurama was the most affected, as the massive fox pup shed tears at the news that the sage would die. Naruto then revealed the growing animosity between Asura and Indra, though it was more on Indra's side than Asura's. Soon as their father finally passed on and the 9 Biju were freed and roamed the world, Asura and Indra fought one another. The sight of the 2 siblings using their respective battle avatars against one another made the Amazons look on in shock and silence as Naruto continued his tale. Indra, despite his lone wolf nature, eventually found a wife and soon had descendants of his own. The 2 siblings continued their war until in the end they would die by each other's hands. This soon led their descendants to continue the blood feud, even though they would never know the reason for the fighting. Eventually the teachings of Hagomoro would change, and not in the way that he had envisioned them to be. People used his teachings to tap their own chakra internally and weaponize it. In turn this gave rise to the militant version of Niunshu, which was ninjutsu. Instead of using chakra in a way to achieve peace as he wanted for them, the people turned chakra into a weapon of war, the very same thing Kagaya had done. And in turn descendants of Asura and Indra would form clans of their own, the Senju and the Uchiha. The audience watched the images play out as Naruto recounted what he was able to learn and see when he had been in the spirit world when it came to the events in history. In his case he was now focused on the clans that would shape the destiny of the worlds he was once alive in. He told them how different the Senju were from the Uchiha, in which the Senju were known as the clan with 1,000 skills due to their very broad understanding of the various aspects of the now existing ninjutsu teachings, as well as the use of genjutsu, taijutsu and more. On the other side of the spectrum, the clan were all battle specialists who were focused on their own chosen fields and the use of the Sharingan to not only have exceptional vision abilities, but also copy the techniques of their foes and use them as well. Thus it was seen why many would be very wary in fighting Uchiha ninja, and there they saw that the divide between the clans was also on the matter of their respective philosophy. For the Senju believed in the will of fire while the Uchiha embraced the curse of hatred, and in many ways the Uchiha were called a cursed clan. It was when Naruto explained the nature of awakening the Sharingan that got the attention of the Amazons. Diana, Donna, Hippolyta, as well as Artemis and Alexa, could not help but shiver in disgust at the idea on how the Sharingan grew in power, namely the next stage. The idea of murdering your best friend blood sibling or witnessing the death of your best friend or sibling was disturbing enough. But oh, take the eyes of your sibling who himself or herself had the Migenkyo Sharingan, so your own set of the same awakened Sharingan could not render you blind was utterly disgusting to them. By the goddess. To murder your own brother or closest friend for power, know that such things can happen, but to see this for myself. They are indeed a cursed clan. Powerful to be sure, but cursed either way because of how they awakened their gift as it were. They watched the Senju and Uchiha wage war with one another, and it was clear that while none of them knew the true reason for this blood feud, they were too far down the line of warfare and hatred to change. Naruto explained how the clan rivalry would extend to even their contracts, when one side in a conflicted hired the Senju, the other hired the Uchiha, and vice versa. It was not long however that things would change somewhat for the two clans, as two scions were born among them. From the Senju came Hashirama Senju, and from the Uchiha, Madara Uchiha, and these two, in Naruto's words, would change the ninja world once again, just as Hagamoro and Homura and Hagamoro's sons Asura and Indra would. How would these two change your world exactly? Anna asked it, and she got her answer. Naruto explained through his conversations with Hashirama how he and Madara met accidentally as children and became friends and rivals. The memories that the first Hokage showed Naruto were played before him, and he could see prior to his fall and full corruption hat Madara was indeed different. They trained together and became close friends to the point they were like brother Seven, though in truth they were by history meant to be enemies. Here the Amazons would learn of the events that would one day form the system of the hidden villages. But in time, both Hashirama and Madara would learn of the truth as their siblings, Izuna for Madara and Tobirama for Hashirama, had seen them and recognized the other. A trap was planned on both sides, but in line with their friendship and shared ideals in their youth both refused to go along with the plan. They warned one another in the same game they played before and soon tried to leave it, but fate had tore plans as their blood siblings and fathers fought one another, and when an attempt to strike at Izuna was made, Madara moved into action. Madara lost several brothers already, and so losing his only remaining sibling was not an option. With that, Madara saved his sibling, and despite retaining his friendship with Hashirama, now vowed to fight the Senju as he looked at them with a fully awakened Sharingan, much to his siblings' delight and his father's approval. Over the next few images, the Amazons watched as the two former friends clashed with one another, and both grew stronger with each major encounter, though it was clear that Hashirama did not wish this to be the case. Madara on the other hand embraced the curse of hatred that drove his clan, and eventually with competition with his sibling, both awakened the Migenkyo Sharingan. Thus as they were now far older and stronger, Hashirama and Madara would eventually rise to the leadership role of their respective clans, and both rose to being highly respected and feared in equal measure. Sadly, the blood wars between them took their toll on both clans, and even among the battle-hardened and experienced Uchiha, they had grown tired of war, some even defecting to the Senju, while some Senju themselves wanted an end to this war. Everything came to head however when Madara, becoming blind from using the Migenkyo, watched as his brother Izuna was critically wounded by Tobirama in combat. Despite Hashirama's pleas for this to end, Madara refused, racked with grief at the loss of his last sibling. Soon he returned, saying that Izuna had died, and offered his eyes to him to never let the Uchiha fall under the Senju and deny all offers of peace. Thus they fought once more, and Madara lost. Hashirama had enough and asked once more peace between him and Madara, only for the latter to demand that either Hashirama die or Tobirama be slain, for he had already lost his brother and his former friend had not. Tobirama called him insane, but Hashirama was willing to accept that and told his clan that he will do this, and they in turn swear to him on his grave to put an end to the bloodshed between them and the Uchiha. But in the end, Madara, recovering in a sense his ties of friendship with Hashirama, stopped him from taking his own life. And in the end, the two clans ended their war, and soon they enacted the things they spoke of in their youth. The establishment of an academy educational system to teach others, to ensure that no more children had to die in pointless wars. As for Mater, the establishment of rules and a system of leadership and governance to ensure that lives were not wasted. Naruto then spoke. And thus was the system of the hidden villages were born, and in it came the very first hidden village home, Konohagakure, or the village of the hidden leaf. And the first Hokage or fire shadow in your tongue was Hashirama. It seemed like it was the end, but in a sense it was not, as the images played on. Despite the fact that both Madara and Hashirama had mended fences for a time, the hidden issues between the Senju and the Uchiha were not fully resolved, and Madara's fear of the Uchiha being oppressed by Tobirama when he became the leader of Konoha or the Hokage grew until he decided to leave and rally his clan once more, despite Hashirama's attempts to have the Senju and the other clans who joined them change their stance. Sadly, many of the Uchiha refused Madara's summons, feeling that he would lead them to ruin and death again. Madara did not this deter him, however, as he had plans of his own, having located an ancient stone tablet secretly highlighting the past of the sage, and soon a plan formed in his mind. But Tiduthaith would have to return to the darkness, and he did without any hesitation, and when Hiraternit revealed to Konoha that he had gained control of none other than a massive Kurama who was now controlled by the Sharingan. That surprised many of the Amazons, as they had no idea that the man had the power to control such a massive being. Naruto then explained to them that over time many sought the power of the Bujubit hardly for peaceful purposes, seeing them all as merely tools of war and raving beasts, with no true sentience and intelligence as well as emotions. Thus this bred a great deal of hatred, resentment, and worse in the Biju and none more so than Kurama, for he was the strongest of all of them. Some were even infused into human beings, becoming Jinchuriki like Hagamoro, but no longer as living prisons, but living weapons. The battle that occurred between Hashirama and Madara was titanic, in a way, even though they could bleed and feel pain like normal men, it was like watching gods fight as neither ninja held back. Hashirama however focused on Kurama first, as despite his natural edge over the Biju, he deemed Kurama far too powerful to be left in the hands of anyone. And coming from someone as powerful as Hashirama, it gave the Amazons a measure of just how powerful this being was. At great cost to himself, Hashirama subdued and freed Kurama from Madara's grip. This in turn allowed a beautiful woman with blood-red hair and wearing regal but functional clothing to somehow seal Kurama's vast power into herself, literally sealing the massive being into her form, and surviving much to wide-eyed astonishment of the Amazons, as Philippa spoke, having remained silent for some time, ever since Naruto began his story, finally spoke. How is she? Naruto sighed a bit and replied. This was one train of conversation he knew was going to be an interesting one. She is Mito Uzumaki of the Uzumaki clan, my maternal ancestor. That got attention as Hippolyta and the others let Naruto continue. I never knew her or the extent of her power, for she was before my time, but the very fact she had the ability to take in all of Kurama's vast power into herself and not die speaks volumes of her power. She never used Kurama's powers herself, but she was formidable. As Kagaya was the ancestor of both the Senju and the Uchiha, she was ancestor to several other clanstons, in turn includes my maternal clan. The Uzumaki were known for their unique chakra signatures, vitality, stamina, and life force. They were very capable in all the ninja arts. Their greatest trait was their expertise in sealing techniques or fuinjutsu. Because the Senju and the Uzumaki were long-standing allies and friends for generations, it was natural that at some point Mito and Hashirama would meet, and over time, both fell in love and marry. Mito accompanied Hashirama in this battle, and for her love of her family and clan on both sides and to her husband, Mito willingly became Kurama's Jinchuriki. With Kurama out of the way, the final battle began with the two former friends who held nothing back, and in the end, Madara was slain, and the place where the two fought utterly changed was called the Valley of the End. Sadly, Madara's plan was not to defeat Hashirama and end him not yet, but to acquire a piece of his flesh and blood, as well as his chakra. The Madara slain was but a clone, a very potent one, and the real Madara escaped. Using the flesh he took from his friend, he began to prepare the infinite Tsukumi plan to finally enact what he wanted. Not merely to surpass his former friend and rival, but to finally bring an end to war and strife his way. It would take years, but he was not going to stop, and soon, with hard work and study, as well as infusing the flesh of Hashirama into his own wound, Madara merged the blood of Uchiha and Senju, awakening the Rinnegan. And with his power and extending his life force, Madara returned the Jito statue back to the world and awakening its will black Zetsu. With the aid of this being and his growing use of the white Zetsu that followed him, Madara's plans took shape. And soon as the years passed, as the first and second shinobi wars began, as Konoha was now joined four major hidden villages who adopted their own versions of the system founded by Hashirama and Madara. The villages in question were Kumagakure, the village of the hidden cloud, Iwagakure, the village of the hidden rock, Sunagakure, the village of the hidden sand, and Kurigakure, or the village of the hidden mist. And from them came their leaders, the Reikage for Kumo, the Tsuchikage for Iwa, Kazukage for Suna, and Mizukage for Kiri. Madara did not reveal himself often, but had placed the seeds of his plans by locating Nagato, one of the few surviving Uzumaki clan members. This confused and worried some of the Amazons, as Alexa voiced that concern. Why is it that you said this youth is one of the few surviving members of your clan? As far as I know, my clan the Uzumaki had developed a powerful reputation in the ninja world, but not all of it was good. Eventually those who feared my clan's skills and abilities eventually waged war against them and invaded their home. The Uzumaki were deadly in their own right, and their home had naturally occurring whirlpools that acted as a natural defense. But in the end the combined shinobi army managed to overcome them and kill many of my clan. Only a few would be left alive. Hippolyta nodded a bit, understanding what this implied. It was quite possible that one of Naruto's parents was one such survivor apart from this Nagato, otherwise he would not be alive today. They watched as Madara would use Nagato as the bearer of his own eyes that now had the Rinnegan until time came for him to be brought back into the realm of the living. In the background of the wars, Madara soon located next key of his plan, a young man by the name of Obito Uchiha, a young Uchiha youth who was the teammate of Naruto's future sensei Kakashi Hatake and fellow Konoha Kunoichi Rin and Naruto's father Minato Namikaze. Madara interfered when Obito and his team had been caught in a battle that cost Kakashi his eye and Obito half his body when a boulder crushed him. He insisted Rin to give his Sharingan now unlocked to Kakashi to help him and replace his lost eye. On the collapse of the floor below him, Obito would be found by Madara and there he would be saved, but not for any other purpose than for Madara to convert his fellow clansmen to his dark cause. And while he gave Obito a prosthetic body to replace the half he lost, he had planned a move that would finally bring his obstinate kinsman to his side. He secretly had several white Zetsu to disguise themselves as Kiri ninja and kidnap Rin and infuse her with Asobu and release her into Konoha to cause a massive rampage. He allowed the information to reach Obito, who had gained mid-level mastery over the powers given to him, and as he expected, Obito rushed there to save his friends, unaware that he was walking into a well-orchestrated trap. Obito arrived in time as Madara happened to see Rin being pierced in the chest via Kakashi's Rikiri, unaware that prior to his arrival, Rin had realized what had been going on and had told Kakashi to kill her in order to prevent Asobu's rampage in Konoha. Kakashi refused, unwilling to kill his only remaining team member and knowing that she loved him despite Obito showing that same affection to her while he did not. He promised Obito he would not let Rin die, but the Kiri ninja attacked and forced him to fight. Rin, however, aware of Kakashi's thoughts and unwilling to let Konoha be destroyed on account of her, willingly stepped into the path of the Rikiri right in front of Kakashi. This allowed Kakashi to awaken the Magenkyo Sharingan and sadly Obito's own as well. Obito went utterly mad with anger and grief at this and attacked the Kiri ninja, though not killing Kakashi who had fallen unconscious. He held Rin and cried at the inability he had to come to help her in time and left hiding his presence once more and for now embracing the clan's curse of hatred, hating the world that they lived in. This however played into Madara's hands and Obito never knew that the whole time that his ancestor was the one who truly killed Rin. As Madara passed on, Obito, now more than able to hold his own, worked in the shadows to finish the plan he and Madara began. He started by seeking out Nagato, who did not need much convincing as he had recently lost his friend Yuhiko to the machinations of Danzo, the leader of Konoha's Anbu Root unit, a faction that Hiruzen had done his best to stamp out when he became Hokage. Thus he, Nagato, and Konan along with their allies in Omegakure killed Hanzo and all of his allies, friends, even family as Obito secretly twisted the young Uzumaki, think that pain is enlightenment and that only when the world's people knew true pain would there be peace. The seeds had been sown into him the day his parents were mistakenly slain by Konoha ninja and where the Rinnegan would awaken, leading to Nagato hating Konoha. Obito eventually made his way back to Konoha, no longer seeing the place as his home. He eventually found Kakashi talking to Rin's grave and learning of the birthing of Naruto himself from the young Jonin, who was unaware that his formerly deceased friend had returned. Obito learned of the location and quickly moved to it, killing the Anbu and then the Kunoichi midwife and Hiruzen's own wife Bawako, taking the crying baby Naruto hostage as Minato and Kushina were caught off guard. Even more so as the seal holding Kurama had loosened. It was here that they would meet Kushina Uzumaki and Hippolyta saw a loving and proud smile on Naruto's face. "She is your mother then?" "Yes, he may have inherited my blonde hair and eyes from my father, but everything else, including my personality, I got from my mother." There was no doubt that Naruto held his mother in high regard, something that was interesting to Hippolyta and also to Diana as well as Donna. The blonde queen looked at Kushina carefully to make sure she did not miss any details. She was indeed rather attractive in many ways. Her hair was blood red, a far deeper shade than any of the other Amazons with red hair, including Artemis and Alexa. Her eyes were deep violet and no doubt held a great deal of power as well. She may have recovered from giving birth to her son, but the look in Kushina's eyes showed that despite the pain of childbirth, she was more focused on the safety of her family, not herself. A true mother in every sense of the word, and Hippolyta wanted to know more but decided to ask at a later date. After all, she wanted to know how was it that Naruto had these memories in him as he was merely a baby at this time. They watched as Obito, his identity hidden from his former sensei and his sensei's wife, threatened the young Naruto with a kunai to the throat, and soon the seal broke and Kurama was breaking free. Minato could not help his wife at this and had to save their son, and he did so with an interesting display of prowess. All of this played in Naruto's mind as he had spoke to both his parents in the afterlife as well as Obito. They watched in shock and horror as Kurama finally escaped from Kushina's body and racked the woman in immense pain, yet despite all of this, and seeing the massive being before her now under the thrall of Obito, Kushina remained defiant and even when about to be killed remained as such. Soon Minato arrived and saved Kushina, taking her to a safe house with Naruto, who was still trying to make sense of it all. Even with the fact she was severely weakened and losing life force, Kushina focused herself in shielding her son. The Amazons witnessed Minato and Obito fight, and they were quick to see Minato use his seals to deflect a powerful attack from Kurama, as the ninja managed to redirect the sphere of destruction from Konoha, as its people, shocked by Kurama's appearance, began to rally and fight back while saving the younger generations. Minato eventually would fight Obito again, managing to defeat Obito and remove his control of Kurama, forcing Obito to retreat. But even when freed, Kurama's hatred for humanity manifested and it began to attack the people, killing many ninja and civilians as well. It was only the intervention of Minato, Gamabunta, who surprised the Amazons at not merely his size, but also his abilities and intelligence, as well they had dealt with such things before. They had not seen a toad of such size, power and intelligence before, and Kushina herself, that they stopped Kurama. But there was only one way to end Kurama's rampage, sealing him, and Kushina wished to be it, even though it would kill her. Even with her clan's immense vitality and stamina, she was on death's door, but was willing to die to defend Konoha, the people, and her familyaven, if it meant leaving behind her beloved husband and son, and not being there to raise her only child. Minato however refused, stating that there was more to what had happened, and he feared that the man who attacked them, if he could control Kurama before, would find a way to control him again. And without anyone whose chakra could resonate with Kurama's own, then Kurama would return again and cause untold damage. And that only left one option, and Kushina opposed. Sealing Kurama into Naruto. The Amazons watched Kushina try to convince Minato that it was wrong and she would do it, knowing fully well how lonely and painful the life of a Jinchuriki would be. But Minato explained that he had faith in their son to be the hero that they and his sensei Jiraiya saw him to be. He also felt that Naruto may be the only one who could turn the once destructive powers of Kurama into something that can save the world. Even more so since he stated that due to being in Kushina's womb when she held Kurama, Naruto's chakra was the best one to resonate with the Bijuu's own. Eventually Kushina consented, and with her chains restraining Kurama, Minato used the Death God seal to take the yin half of Kurama's chakra to seal it into himself at the cost of his own soul. Kurama, despite being stripped of half his power, was still massive and very powerful, and now aware of this plan, decided to kill Naruto. The claw nearly impaled the still crying baby had it not been for both Minato and Kushina using their own bodies to stop it, leading to them being fatally wounded. This bought enough time though for Kurama to be sealed into Naruto. The Amazons listened to Kushina and Minato's last words, and Kushina, stating she would leave something behind for Naruto to their crying son, who now bore the same seal on his body as his mother did, and then they died, leaving Naruto an orphan. Hippolyta was silent at this, and so were the other Amazons. Diana looked at Naruto and saw that he was affected by this memory greatly and decided to ask. How did you learn of this when you were just a baby? My parents each left a special soul imprint on me when they sealed Kurama into me, when they Tivitethi spoke to me about it, and in my time in the afterlife, they told me more. My time when I was alive with my parents was brief, but I knew there and then that loved me with all that they were. And I was strong because of them, even if I never knew them growing up. Diana decided not to ask any more for now, and it seemed that the same sentiment was there for all the other Amazons as well. Thus Naruto continued, with him revealing that despite his father's dying wish that he be seen as a hero, only few of Konoha's people would agree to it, including the former Hokage Hiruzen. The others, filled with anger, hatred, and grief, would hate Naruto for the rest of his life, even going so far as to want to slay him even as a baby. Hiruzen put a stop to that and ordered henceforth that no one would speak of Kurama, and also no harm should happen to Naruto under penalty of death. That was meant to shield him, but the parents would poison their children's views of Naruto for years to come. The Amazons watched as Naruto grew up in Konoha, treated as a pariah, at times beaten by the more daring of the villagers with thrown objects and never direct physical force, and insulted. Some even went as far as to say that he should just die right there, and Nofi witnessed how hurt and confused Naruto was, and how he eventually had a part of him hate the villagers for treating him like this, for something he would not know of until later in life. Had it not been for the kindness of Hiruzen, the reinstated Hokage after his father Minato's death, and by Tuchi and Aim, Naruto would have gone half mad in anger and hatred. and although he used jokes, pranks, and more to counter the loneliness, bitterness, and anger in him, he would still in private stay in his old room and cry himself to sleep and feel anger at what was done to him. Some of the Amazons were not too pleased with this, as even though they too had issues with men, treating children like this was wrong. Yes, Naruto was a male child to be sure, but to be treated like this was appalling to them. Hippolyta herself was not pleased at all at this and yet looked to see that Naruto, the newly restored to life one, did not carry any hatred in his heart anymore. To have developed the ability to look past such hatred in his youth must explain why he was never affected by the glares her people gave him on his arrival. If he has endured such animosity growing up in his world prior to his death and resurrection, then it makes sense that he would be far more tolerant than most when it concerns our issues with men. They saw how he would one day meet none other than his future wife Hinata Hyuga when in a cold and snowy day he came to her aid and despite being beaten, still managed to help her. How he then gave the ruined scarf he had to the young girl and stood by her, unaware at the time how this would affect his future. They saw the bittersweet smile on Naruto's face when they saw this memory and saw the look of happiness and sadness there as a simple tear flowed down his face. Hippolyta recognized that look easily enough after all she experienced it before. She however recalled what Alexa had said and decided not to question Naruto on this until much later when a clearer picture was present to them. It was also here in the same academy that he would meet his father figure Iruka, who became his teacher, who despite being forced to deal with Naruto's antics, his ramen obsession, and dealing with the fact that Kurama slew his own parents, leaving him as such an orphan as Naruto, still watched out for the young man. And here he also met his first friend Yoda, who amazingly enough had the power to influence the weather, but had been taken by the Anbu, and Naruto was forced to have his memory of him erased until much later. Naruto would soon show from the conversations he had with Obito, Konan, and Nagato how Akatsuki was reformed into what it was now. Nagato and Obito sought out some of the most dangerous and violent ninja from various villages to form this mercenary band, wherein Nagato and Konan would be the public leaders, while Obito would be the true leader in the shadows. The first would be naturally the members of the zombie duo, Kakazu and Haiden. Kakazu was a user of a powerful forbidden technique or kinjutsu that allowed him to survive for a century by stealing the hearts of his victims and using them to empower him. Each heart had a unique elemental chakra type in it, and if one was lost, then Kakazu would replace the lost heart with a new one that had the same elemental affinity as the lost one. Haiden was a violent practitioner of a religion of god of pain, suffering, and death known as Jashin. Haiden's use of a brutal ritual and defiance to his former village made him immortal and with a new jutsu could entrap his foes after sampling their blood and make any injury he suffered be passed on to his victim, while he derived pleasure from the pain he inflicted on himself while wounding or killing his foe, who he called a sacrifice to Jashin. Such a technique was abhorrent to the Amazons, and it showed as they were less than pleased at the sight of the man. The next was Sasori of the Hidden Sand, or the Puppet Master, who had willingly transformed himself in a battle puppet. Once they understood just how it was done, the Amazons were none too pleased at what this man did to himself and also how deadly he was, since he was only vulnerable in the heart, but any other location that could be attacked was useless as his body was now purely artificial and he could not feel pain anymore like a normal person. Next was Deidara, a renegade ninja of Iwa who actually had mouths in his hands that allowed him to infuse a type of clay explosive with his chakra that could be made into animals of any size or even copies of himself with explosive results. The man was a wanted terrorist who could literally decimate entire battlefields or kill a single target with one of his creations that he called art. The next was Kisame Hashigaki, who was one of the 7 mist swordsmen of Kiri, a known renegade who wielded the sentient sword Samehada. The Amazons were disturbed by his shark-like appearance even, more so when Samehada was exposed and in its true form. Snarling and licking its lips in hunger and showing a toothy grin that was very disturbing, Naruto revealed that Kisame was recruited personally by Obito because the man wanted to live in a world with no lies, as his own sensei Samehada's previous wielder prior to him was a traitor. The next was Orochimaru, a traitor ninja to Konoha itself and former teammate of Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya. The snake-like appearance and dark demeanor as well as sadistic aura the ninja excluded was troubling to the Amazons, but Hippolyta noted that Naruto had a rather dark scowl towards the man. And Naruto had good reason for such a dark look, as even though Orochimaru aided somewhat in the final battle he had not forgotten that it had been his actions that turned Sasuke into a criminal and traitor to Konoha. Hippolyta decided to wait for a better time as they looked at the next images. And the last showed yet another traitor to Konoha, Itachi Uchiha, a prodigy among the Uchiha who despite being at such a tender age of 10, was already a battle-hardened and experienced Anbu and became their head captain at the age of 13. He has a tie to none other than Sasuke Uchiha, his younger brother. Sasuke not only loved but idolized his brother and worked hard to finally reach a level that could make him able to stand not only out of his brother Itachi's shadow, but to be able to show to Itachi that he was truly strong. However, Itachi was consumed by his own inner darkness and eventually murdered his own best friend Shusui Uchiha and soon became distant from his clan and soon committed the atrocity that was known as the Uchiha clan massacre, killing his former clansmen and leaving his parents for last. As Sasuke returned to see the horrors of it, Itachi soon revealed that he had done so to test his power, the Migenkyo Sharingan, something many Uchiha had sought for years ever since Madara's supposed defeat. He made Sasuke relive the events through the Tsukuyomi and told his brother to hate him and feel nothing but anger and hatred towards him so that he could indeed kill him. Thus that event twisted Sasuke forever, turning him from a sweet, kind, and fun-loving youth to a cold, arrogant, angry, and revenge-driven youth. All he thought about was to one day have enough power needed to finally put his fallen brother to the grave and avenge their family. Many of the Amazons were disgusted by all of this, calling Itachi a murderous and cold-blooded monster who deserved to die in the most horrible manner for committing the act of slaying his own kin for power. They were unaware that Naruto had purposely held off his memories of the truth of the massacre and how in fact Itachi had felt immense guilt and self-loathing for having to kill his clan and leaving his parents for last and their acceptance of what was to come and asking him as he held his sword to their throats from behind to watch over his brother and that they were sorry for having to place him in this mess because of the rebellion they planned. And of course the truth was that Itachi had spared Sasuke because he did indeed loved him and wanted Sasuke to be the one kill him so that the Uchiha name would be unstained by the dishonor of being labeled as traitors, as their clan had indeed planned a coup in retaliation for them being singled out and isolated, even more so ever since the aftermath of Kurama's rampage in Konoha. He took that a higher level as he hid the fact that Obito had come back to Konoha to kill off the Uchiha and destroy Konoha in some fashion, while making it seem like the Uchiha were responsible, so any who survived would be easier to convince to side with him, and it was Itachi who managed to convince Obito to spare Konoha in exchange for killing off the Uchiha clan, minus his brother Sasuke. Even though there was no need for such secrecy as there was no chance any Uchiha would be here in this world, the Uchiha were redeemed in the end and that Obito, Itachi and Sasuke had long since moved on from those events, he had no intention of trusting such knowledge to anyone. Not until he was absolutely certain they understood that not all was what it seemed and that he could trust them. Thus he was naturally thankful that none of them asked question on that front even though the lasso was still on him. Soon the images changed to him going to the academy and eventually meeting more of his classmates who would become his friends and allies in the future. Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburam, and Hinata who had become slightly older and eventually meeting Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha himself. They also saw him deface the Hokage monument in an orange jumpsuit in broad daylight and they could not help but look at him with uncomprehending expressions as well as looks of disappointment and amusement, even more so when he was given the 4th degree by his less than amused sensei Iruka. In my defense, I was a kid then. The Amazons watched him struggle and fail at least 3 times but never give up until he finally got dragged into the mess with Mizuki and Iruka as the traitorous ninja had fooled Naruto to stealing the forbidden scroll and had planned to give it to Orochimaru in secret. Here they witnessed Iruka's words that changed Naruto despite the revelation that he held Kurama in him and how he would use the jutsu that would be his trademark for years to calm the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Soon the images changed to him joining the team under none other than Kakashi himself, and though they had a less than stellar start, they would become a good team for the time they were together, as Sasuke and Naruto were now rivals, though Naruto also saw Sasuke as something of a kindred spirit since they were alone for a long time. Sasuke did not show that at the time until it was only much later did he reveal that fact that he too was thankful for the presence of the others. Naruto naturally blocked a particular incident between him and Sasuke best not to bring that up. Unfortunately for Naruto, the next set of memories came up. And there was one that stood out the most. This was the memory that haunted him as he grew up, the dreaded first bell test he had with the whole team against Kakashi. And it was not long before the whole event played out, he sighed mentally as he recalled those memories on this event very much. And soon, much to his embarrassment, the images finally showed him being caught off guard by Kakashi. And introduced to the 1000 years of death jutsu. That incident in the training field was one he could do well not to remember, but it was there for all to see and it was fairly obvious that it was something none of the Amazons had ever seen before. Some were gaping in shock, others shook their heads in disgust, others were trying their hardest not to laugh, others were also rubbing their eyes, as if thinking that what they saw was a fluke or something. Diana commented after a moment or two, though it was clear that she was trying her best not to laugh at him. It would have been quite rude after all. Did that actually happen? Naruto blushed and since the lasso was on him, he told the truth. Yes, it did happen at one of my finest moments to be sure, and part of me wishes to never see that again. Hippolyta was also trying hard not to laugh and spoke. I can see why. The images continued to show how Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke would go on missions with Kakashi, and soon they saw the mission that would start a path that would define Naruto in the years to come, a mission in the Land of Waves. Soon they met Haku and Zabuza, and they witnessed the first time Naruto would summon Kurama's power when he suspected Sasuke was killed by Haku near the end of the mission, but at this time Naruto is unaware of the power he uses subconsciously. They saw the speech between Haku and Naruto, and how in a way this speech would pass on a part that would forge Naruto on. When one finds something worth fighting for, only then will they become strong. The conversation between Zabuza and Naruto was also telling, and how he, a young kid, had managed to break through the cold killer facade of the man who had killed so many and made him become a human being, not a tool. They saw how the mission ended, and in turn they soon were able to see the Chunin exams. They were soon able to witness the Chunin exams, and here was where Naruto would meet yet another series of people who would define him in the future. The first being Rock Lee, a Taijutsu user who was like Naruto, had a genius rival in Neji Hyuga in his own team, and who got to where he was through hard work, sweat, blood, and tears, similar indeed to Naruto as well. Another was naturally the Suna shinobi and fellow Jinchuriki Gaara of the Sand, who in many ways was a dark mirror to Naruto, but would one day become one of Naruto's trusted allies and friends, and his encounter with Gaara's siblings Temari and Kankuro. He would also meet Kabuto, Orochimaru's subordinate and the deadly ninja traitor himself, in the progressing moments of the exam. This also allowed the Amazons to meet many other ninja as well from the male and female side of the gender line. Some of whom would become part of the groups that would forge Naruto into who he will be. They saw him and his team fight in the Forest of Death, and the event that would bring Sasuke and Naruto to a head as enemies when Orochimaru bit Sasuke in the neck and inject the cursed seal into the Uchiha youth. The events played on with Naruto winning his place in the semi-finals and his promise to avenge Hinata when she was badly hurt in fighting her cousin Neji. They soon saw his training with Abisu and eventually meeting none other than Jiraiya. Needless to say, the man screamed pervert in so many ways that many Amazons frowned at him when they saw him act like that around women. Naruto sighed at that and replied. "The whole Iro Senin?" Diana asked while keeping an eye on Jiraiya. "What does that mean?" "My pet nickname for him, it basically means perverted hermit or pervy sage, since he never hides his perversion from anyone, and I swear he actually is proud of being a pervert. He never liked that name though whenever I said it." Hippolyta snorted. "I can see why." Here Naruto frowned a bit and made his displeasure known. "Hey, don't think he was that bad, sure he had no problems being a pervert, but he told me old man Hiruzen was even worse than he was, and after some stunts I did pull on the old man, I found out he was right. Besides, despite being a ninja he loved peace and felt that the younger generation was the best solution to ending the hatred that was in the system of the ninja world. He also was very loyal to Konoha down to the bones, and he grew up to be a great hero and a powerful ninja, and perverted tendencies aside, he did have his limits on such things, namely with Tsunade Obasan around." "Who is that?" Naruto recalled Tsunade, and soon the Amazon saw a tall blonde woman who had a very fine figure who wore a kimono top, long pants, sandals, a long coat of green. She had her hair and two tails in the back and carried herself with a strong level of confidence and power that was matched only by Hippolyta. She also happened to possess a strong level of beauty that was natural and put her in par with the Amazons, close to Diana and her mother. The rather large bust also seemed to add weight to the looks. Naruto soon explained who she was when Donna asked him who Tsunade was. "She is Tsunade Senju, one of the last Senju clan members, and since Mito Uzumaki was her grandmother that makes her my maternal relative. She is an exceptionally skilled Kanachi in her own right and is the founder of the Medic Nin system and also a skilled healer and a fierce fighter. Apart from those things, Tsunade is also known for her monster strength, so much so she can kill men with just a punch without even using her full might behind that blow. Combine that with her immense tolerance for pain, durability and speed, only the highest level fighters would dare to take her on. Being a Senju and an Uzumaki on both sides, her life force is far stronger, along with her stamina and vitality. Her chakra reserves were very potent and so was her control of her chakra, so she can use all manner of jutsu to maximum effect with minimum loss. She also has remarkable skills in Jinjutsu, Fuinjutsu and other arts, namely since she was able to make organic prosthetic limbs from the cells of her grandfather, which I happen to have as a replacement for my analyst arm. That made the Amazons all the more curious, but they did not stop him from continuing. She also happens to be one of the only two female Kage in my world. That got the interest of the Amazons, and Hippolyta decided to ask that question. So women in your world are not restricted because of gender? Naruto gave a raised eyebrow and replied while still under the influence of the lasso. In my world there is no such thing as gender bias or that dumb idea that women are weak and have no say in anything, such beliefs are stupid and no longer valid. Any man who spouts such nonsense in my world either is dumber than dirt or has a very blatant disregard for his life and as such usually don't not live very long. Men and women hold equal rights and have every option open to them to reach their goals and become stronger. Many kunoichi rose to great fame and recognition in my world, my mother and Tsunade among them. And even those who are not kunoichi have risen to high status and recognition in their respective lands through hard work and lineage. This actually makes the Amazons more relaxed as the lasso's power was still active and thus they all knew he spoke the truth to them. As for Hippolyta as well as both Diana and Donna, this made them all the more eager to see more. Still this tie, not merely blood tie to be sure, between Tsunade and Naruto was interesting to Diana as she spoke. She was like a mother to you? Naruto smiled at that and nodded. Yes she was, she had bad habits to be sure, who hasn't? But she always had faith in the younger generation and never saw Jinchuriki as tools to be discarded like trash. She had a bad life losing her brother and her loved one Ans was a big cynic when I met her, but in the end she and I became close to the point of being family. I'm the only guy who has the guts to call her grandmother or Abasan and I am the only guy she's ever going to allow to call her that in her face. Anyone else try that they get a fist in the face and be in a hospital or a coffin. Artemis then spoke. So why this was Jiraiya very restrained in regards to his perversion around her. Naruto then gave a smile as he recalled the story easily and showed it. Because one time she caught him peeping at her when she was bathing in the hot springs I think when they were still in the same team. Needless to say she was angry and gave him such a thrashing, which resulted in both his arms broken, 6 broken ribs, and several ruptured internal organs, and possibly one killer of a concussion. In fact if he had not been taken to a hospital he would have died. Needless to say, that convinced Hiro Sennin to behave when she was around. That made Artemis smirk a bit in approval and spoke. I like this Tsunade. Naruto shrugged and replied. Still, Tsunade Abasan and Hiro Sennin remained good friends and allies and he actually was in love with Tsunade for a very long time. He knew he never had a chance with her, but that never stopped him and perverted tendencies as well as overt love for Theatrix aside, he knew when to be serious. Hippolyta soon decided that there would be time for more discussions later as they moved back to the events of Theisuinen exams and their aftermath. Namely his battle with Kiba and Akamaru which made them look at him with amusement and some level of disgust on how he defeated Kiba in the end. Naruto merely shrugged at that and they witnessed the battles to follow, namely between Temari and Tenten, Hinata and Niji, and soon against Lee and Gaara, with Lee's physical performance and the use of the gates actually making some Amazons look on in surprise, the most being Donna at seeing the speed and power in Lee's attacks. However they were not pleased with how Gaara crippled Lee and yet were impressed by the fact that Lee, relying solely on muscle memory still stood up, ready to fight even with a crushed arm and leg. This was one of the many events that would shape the blonde, along with his vow to defeat Niji and his views on destiny. They soon saw him dealing with the removal of the seal on his body courtesy of Orochimaru, thanks to Jiraiya and the water walking exercise, and soon summoning the very same toad that his father summoned after nearly falling down a ravine, something Naruto did not ever forget long ago, and the Amazons looked in keen interest as Gamabunta and Naruto faced off with one another. They had to admire the blonde for having the courage to actually berate such a massive and obviously intelligent and powerful, being right in its eyes or rather face, and challenging it to throw him off as he planned to stay there until Gamabunta accepted him as his master. The sight of the young man trying to hold on for dear life to stay on top of a massive talking intelligent toad to prove that he summoned him and not his perverted shinobi of a teacher was rather interesting to them. Even the normally sarcastic Artemis was impressed at the display, even more so when Gamabunta really thrashed the place and leaped around to throw Naruto off. Naruto sighed in absolute amusement and spoke once more. Me first I'm dealing with Boss Toad when I met him all those years ago when I was still a youngster. I still recall all the times I got sent up to the sky by him when he leaped and trying to hold on for dear life when we went crashing back down it to be young and stupid again. That actually made the Amazons chuckle as they found his expressions on said incidents outright entertaining. The images soon showed that he not only survived the ordeal, but had indeed earned the respect of Gamabunta for surviving that long on him, with only the 4th Hokage, Naruto's father being the one he would ever allow to ride on his head with no complaints. Soon the images changed to him meeting none other than Gaara again when the Sand Shinobi intended to murder Rock Lee in his sleep after he had crushed Rock Lee's arm and leg in their battle brutally. It was here that he and Shikamaru stopped Gaara and here Gaara revealed his own Jinchuriki status to Naruto who had at this time had no idea that Gaara was like him. But it was clear that unlike him Gaara had the worst of it and was more driven by hatred, making Naruto realize that he was looking at a dark version of himself. Even more so when Naruto was told by Gaara on how he became a Jinchuriki, though not all the details were there. Of course, in his time in the afterlife, Naruto managed to chat with both Gaara and Rasa, Gaara's father. He did not have any love for what Rasa put his own son through, but made no issue of it since it was clear to him that both Rasa and Gaara had mended fences when they met in the Fourth Shinobi War. Gaara explained how it happened, and Naruto had to admit that it was one of the few things that made using the Ito Tensei somewhat acceptable apart from him seeing his father, Itachi, the Hokage, and of course old man Hiruzen again. Plus while in the afterlife, Rasa and Gaara did become like a family alongside Gaara's mother and Rasa's wife, along of course with Kankuro and Temari. He decided that until he could truly rust the Amazons at full, this was yet another secret he would keep. The images soon came to him meeting Hinata again and chatting about his own growing doubts and how she inspired him to not give up. Seeing and recalling that memory once more made Naruto smile as he recalled just how much of an impact they both had towards one another and how he felt like a louse for not knowing about the depth of Hinata's feeling until much later in life. Kami he hated being dense at times. Soon the image changed to him fighting with Neji, and despite his bad state, he still managed to pull off moves and attacks which were interesting and ingenious. The Amazon saw his defiance and courage even when his chakra was cut, and soon he summoned Kurama's chakra, and with it, plus a very ingenious move, bested Neji, much to the shock of all who watched who had once thought Naruto would not win against Neji, since Neji was a genius compared to Naruto at the time. In the end, Naruto's speech against the idea that destiny cannot be changed struck a chord with Neji and even among the Amazons, even more so when he reminded Neji that he failed 3 times and the same jutsu that Neji said was his trademark was actually the one he stank at the most. And he told him to stop harping that nonsense about fate because if he and Lee could defy fate and stand up and be here in this field, what's stopping someone like him from doing the same? They witnessed the remaining matches until the final one that soon led to the signal for the invasion of Konoha by Suna to begin. The battle was harsh and brutal as the Konoha ninja were caught off guard by the attack of their supposed allies. The fact that a number of Odo ninja joined in the assault added to that. But eventually Konoha won the battle when their forces rallied and the power wielded by the ninja that called it home was seen, which was why it had a strong military in its own right. Naruto, despite being outmatched by Gaara, eventually defeated his fellow Jinchuriki in combat, using more combat-oriented moves similar to the one used by Kakashi. That in summoning Gamabunta into battle with Shukaku, which was needed when the Amazon saw how massive the Sand Raccoon was, and that despite not being as strong as Kurama, was still not one to look down on if one wished to remain alive. His conversation with Gaara was heard, and soon he was aided by Sasuke, though they saw that the cursed seal was on him as well. But like all wars, Konoha had suffered, not only from the slain ninja of their forces but the loss of Hiruzen who fought the Kazekage, only for it to be none other than Orochimaru who used Ito Tensei to force Hiruzen to fight the 2 Senju siblings, forcing Hiruzen to use the same jutsu that took the life of Minato to seal the souls of the 2 ninja, and had tried to use the same to end his former student, only to accept only severing Orochimaru's arms in soul terms. The old man died with a smile on his face and was honored greatly for his sacrifice. Naruto himself wept at the death of the old man, and this was yet another event that would shape him for the rest of his life. But in the days to come Naruto would face more challenges to come. To be continued. What if Naruto hates the Amazons? Justice League end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.